So this is the story of Michelle Mischon Stevens and John Stevens, told by Gencia
and Wyatt
on the Evil Essence podcast. This is our first episode. We are total amateurs. But I'm very interested in true crime. Wyatt is also interested, and it's not just true crime. We're planning to cover just stories of basically human survival, animal attacks.
Which I'll be a little bit more interested in, but
Wyatt will probably cover more of those, and I'll probably cover more of the true crime situations. But basically it's all just about like the human will and just the evil essence of nature is why I decided to name it that, because nature's fucking wild, and nature in terms of our brains and minds and people who go crazy and kill people, and then also just nature as in nature, exposure, animal. Also, I've taken a lot of inspiration, I'm just gonna be straight up, from the Morbid podcast, because I fucking love them. They're amazing, and they honestly seem like two girls that just want like everyone to succeed, and that's why I started this, is because like they made me feel confident. I listened to their early episodes and like when they were just starting out, and so and also they taught me that I can be weird as fuck and it's fine, because there's other weird people out there that'll enjoy it. So that's just a little bit about what the podcast is gonna be.
In most cases it's gonna be one of us telling a story and the other reacting to it for the first time, also hearing it like the audience is. Exactly.
I think that's a fun way to do it as well, because then you can get real-time opinions from one of us, like stuff that maybe the audience is thinking. Yeah,
everything you've heard that's my first reaction. So you'll get my real-time reaction, and if I lead any stories in the future, it'll be Gencia's real-time reaction. So
and also I think we mentioned earlier that Wyatt has Tourette's, but like whatever, just let him live his life and make a couple little sounds here and there.
Some could say that I'm the one making the animalistic noises.
God, our first case includes animalistic noises.
Oh, okay.
This is probably a part of that video or that podcast, I would assume, but I don't really know what the entire plan is at this moment, so we don't know what we're doing.
Yep.
Just figuring it out as we go.
You know, we're in a room right here that's where poor people live, alright? So.
Oh, thanks for saying that about my house. No, he's right though, it is pretty true.
When this blows up one day, people are gonna see the footage of where we started, and it's just gonna be this old messy beat up room.
We literally have a poster of Kramer on the wall. No. Also another thing I wanted to say, so basically what happened is our Auntie Barb was murdered by her husband, but they could never find enough evidence to prosecute him, but like our entire family, they know what happened. He was an abusive asshole, and he died not long after, I also found. So that's what first got me into true crime, because that is still unsolved, and I don't even think it's an open investigation at all. They just determined it to be an accident, but everybody fucking knows it wasn't. And it was actually Christmas of 1980. When she was killed.
You know, we tried to make Christmas a happy thing, but so many bad things happen around that time of year, it's hard.
Honestly, yeah. So that's the first thing that got me into it, hearing about that, and I remember telling Mom growing up, I was like why can't we do anything? Like, can the police look at it again or something? And she was just like, I think she just wants to kind of put it out of her mind, so I don't really want to bring it up to her too much, because I never met Auntie Barb, so I don't know.
Now we'll know if she really listens to our podcast. She'll hear that.
But yeah, that's basically what we're doing here. And then also Wyatt loves I Shouldn't Be Alive sitches.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show I Shouldn't Be Alive, but that's I think a bit of an older show now. I honestly, I don't know. We've only ever seen them on YouTube, so
yeah.
But it's just situations reenacted by actors of real life stories of people who got into situations in their life where they shouldn't have survived, because it's just something crazy like being stranded in the ocean for 3 months.
Right. Gencia here. Just jumping in to give you a little bit of a transition between this into the story, because we apparently forgot to do that when we were together. So yeah, and wow, doesn't this audio sound much better like this? So we're gonna continue that going forward, and I'm gonna try not to punch the mic so much. And now we are just going to go ahead and get into the story. So here we go. So this is the story of Michelle Mischon Stevens and John Stevens. On the night of Monday, August 15th in 2016, they were enjoying a night in their garage on Kokomo Lane in Jupiter, Florida.
Coconut Lane.
Kokomo Lane, which sounds awesome, actually.
Yeah, it sounds like a cool street to live on.
Yeah, well, and it was. It was actually very fancy and, like, suburban and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I found pictures of it, and yeah, like, they had a nice place. And it's in Florida, so how can you go wrong?
We'll have to share those pictures with the fans later.
Yeah, all of our fans.
Yeah.
No. So they were having a nice night. Kind of reminds me of stuff we used to do in, like, Dad's garage growing up, playing Connect and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
They called this space that they made the Garage Mahal, like the Taj Mahal.
Yeah. The Garage Mahal. Creative name.
I love it, actually. And they even had a sign made for it, like a wood sign commissioned specifically for that. So,
creative people, I see.
Yeah, exactly. They were really cool. I actually really wish I could have gotten to know them. Honestly. So yeah, they often watch TV there in the Garage Mahal, entertain family, friends. They loved going fishing, so they would cook up whatever John had caught, or Michelle, actually. She was a great fisherman too.
Okay, well, the whole Fisher family.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're Florida fish people. Sounds like One Piece.
Florida fish people. Fishman.
I don't fish. I don't
Shout out One Piece if you guys know the show. It's a great show.
I don't fish, so I don't really know, but they're fisher people, and it's really cool because it reminds me of our family a lot.
Yeah, Mom and Jim like to go fishing.
Yeah, exactly. It really reminds me of them. They welcomed everyone over all the time. It was like a neighborhood gathering. Like, these people would invite everybody over after work.
Okay.
Sounds awesome. They had couches, like, everything. They had, like, an ice machine, I read
Sounds
somewhere.
like quite the vibe.
Yeah, exactly. It's a perfect vibe.
Yeah.
So, they were in their happy place when all of the horrible things happened that are going to happen today. We won't get too far into that tragic night just yet, but just know the attack was really brutal.
Okay.
And really senseless. When the police did arrive, just so everyone who's maybe listening knows, I think we're pretty okay with listening to this kind of stuff, but it's gonna get gruesome. Yeah. But for now,
you might not want to eat after listening to this story.
Yeah, that's what I told Wyatt going in. Yeah. We also do have a third victim in this attack, which his name is Jeff Fisher.
Oh, okay, so these people that you're listing off here are the victims, or the soon-to-come victims.
Yes, exactly. Jeff Fisher was a neighbor and a friend of theirs. He was able to escape immediate danger despite his life-threatening injuries. And he was the one who actually called for help that night. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, let's read the disclaimer that I've written. We don't intend any disrespect to any families of victims in the story. It's going to be hard to listen to at points, and we'll give warnings before getting to those, like, very bad parts.
Alright.
So yeah. It's important to start with John and Michelle. I did see in one source that their daughter, Ivy.
Oh, Ivy.
Their daughter, Ivy. Do you know anyone named Ivy? I don't know anyone named Ivy.
That rings a bell.
Or maybe our mom, you know?
That's the name of our mother.
It's such a unique name. That's why I was like, what? Hold on.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody else named Ivy.
No, literally.
Before, aside from our mom.
Exactly. So, Ivy said in her testimony after everything happened, quote, "I am so angry that this is the only way I can remember them now. I'm angry that they won't be remembered for the life they lived before you." End quote. So, what we're hoping to do here is to share about the life they lived before all that happened. So I spent a lot of time diving into Michelle's memorial page on Facebook and learning about the whole family. But the family's super cool. Like, so we're talking about John and Michelle, but they had kids.
Okay.
And their kids are like, one of them's moved to Kansas City, and he's a
Okay,
big
so
Chiefs fan.
that's
He's
pretty
got
awesome.
Yeah.
Go Chiefs.
Exactly. He's got like all his little family all decked out, and they went to the Super Bowl and everything. Just like
Nice.
super, super cute. Yeah.
Maybe I saw him there when I went to
Maybe that's literally what I was thinking,
a couple
but
weeks
I don't
ago,
wanna...
or a week ago. Or
Yeah, you were just in Kansas City. So yeah, start with John J. Stevens III, because
Alright.
that's his full name.
John. What was it, John?
John J. Stevens III, but we'll just call him John.
John J.
Mostly.
Okay. Well,
It's a little confusing because his kid's name is also John.
Oh boy. We'll know him as John. Okay.
Yeah. We'll call him John. So he was born to Helene Stevens and John Stevens II. He actually went by Jack. So his parents are Helene and Jack. I think it's important to talk about the parents because it kind of shows you who the people are, who our victims are.
Yeah.
So, like, his upbringing and everything, I won't get too far so we don't get confused. But, so John's mother was born in Connecticut on October 5th in the 30s.
Okay.
She and her family moved to Miami Beach when she was still very young. There, Helene attended high school and university. So, again, John's mom, Helene. I couldn't find much, but she graduated probably around the early 50s.
Oh, okay.
After this, she became a savvy real estate agent who was treasured by her clients, many of whom became lifelong friends. So, like, this lady's super cool. She moved to Miami. She is a real estate agent. Her clients love her. Like, she's a successful, badass lady.
Alright, so she seems like a good woman.
Yeah, exactly. So then enter Jack Stevens. This is when she meets Jack.
Okay.
I found on Ancestry.com that John's father, Jack, was married to Helene in 1955. Now, Jack Stevens was actually born and raised in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
The obituary wasn't exactly clear, but his mother was definitely from Ireland and probably his father too. And it's kind of cool because he was known as the All-American Irishman. So that's where John came from.
Okay.
He also, his father, was a 40-year resident of Miami at the time of his death. He was a badass. He served in the U.S. Army.
Alright.
So awesome. And then that was a trend that his son and grandson would be inspired by and follow in his footsteps.
Okay, so the whole family went to the U.S. Army.
Yeah, exactly. So our victim today and our victim's son also joined the Army. So he was also very sporty. He was athletic. He loved playing tennis and hockey, baseball. At one point, he was even drafted as a pitcher for the St. Louis Browns. This guy was awesome. Like, he did everything. So he was a successful businessman. He co-owned and operated a country club. So fucking fancy. And restaurant in the Miami area. And even became a management consultant for the Bascom Palmer Eye Institute at the University of Miami School of Medicine.
Alright, so this man was basically everything.
Yeah, exactly. He's all over the map in all the best ways.
Pretty good sounding guy.
That's Jack. Jack married Helene. They had John Stevens. That was their kid. So now we've covered John's parents. So John, born July 2nd, 1957 in Florida. He was a Florida man through and through. He was a Cancer. That's his star sign. I don't know much about star signs, but it's kind of fun, like, to relate it back to people that you know. I don't know any Cancers personally.
I don't know any Cancers either.
But maybe someone listening does. Maybe, like, your mom is or somebody, and it just makes it more real.
Yeah.
These are real people. So, he did have a sister, Gina. I couldn't find too much on her, but it was said later on that she and her mother really enjoyed traveling the world together, as Gina worked for American Airlines. So that's pretty cool.
All
so
right.
Gina and Helene.
Some travelers.
Yeah, so Gina and Helene are traveling, having fun together, doing mother-daughter shit. John and his father were doing athletic stuff, playing baseball together and things like that. And, you know, they were a happy family all together. Little mom and dad, boy and girl, you know, all-American family. Helene was known to enjoy cooking and playing Scrabble. She volunteered a lot in her spare time, and she was a devout Catholic and a loving mother. So John grew up in a Catholic home with solid family values and a very strong work ethic. He was taught to keep kindness always on the forefront of everything that he would do. And he grew into just like an amazing person as a result, as we'll get into. He followed in both his mother and father's footsteps. He also grew up to love cooking, like his mama, and would later host cookouts for his friends, family, and neighbors. John became known as a talented athlete, just like his father. For his high school years, he attended Miami Killian High School.
Oh, okay.
And then he graduated in 1975 and would go join the Air Force. So,
all right.
Awesome. Before he met Michelle, who's our other victim today, John did marry another woman named Susan in July of 1987.
Okay.
That was according to Ancestry.com when I had my free trial because I can't afford an actual subscription.
And that's why you guys need to subscribe to the podcast.
Yes, that's why we need to figure out how we're going to, because we want to do this right, you know, and I love researching, so I will read everything.
Yeah.
All the books.
That is Jinsia's thing.
I already asked Jordan to buy me like several books. Buy me
Jordan, when you have to get the boyfriend to step in to get the books.
Yeah, come on, man. Find my dreams here. John, they both actually had previous people they were married to, John and Michelle, which is pretty common. But so John, we're going through his life right now. So he married a woman named Season.
Cecil?
Cecil. He married Cecil.
You married a woman named Cecil.
Cecil got pregnant. No, he married Susan in July of 1987.
Did he marry Susan in the season of summer or fall or winter, or do we know that fact?
Well, it was July, so...
Oh, this, I guess, summer.
You know. So I couldn't find too much on the divorce, but hopefully that is a good thing, meaning that it went like smoothly and happily and whatnot.
Yeah.
And they had 2 kids together, so they kind of had to make it work.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know. I just realized we never addressed the Tourette of it all.
Oh. The Tourette, as the Germans would call it, the Tourette.
The Tourette, as we figured out when we went to Germany. Wyatt has a little Tourette situation.
Yeah.
And that's
so
that.
If you hear some strange noises throughout the podcast, that's most likely...
Mind your business.
Yeah. Mind your business.
What's wrong with that?
That's most likely me.
Yeah, and you know what?
Or the cat scratching at the door, which will be edited out.
It could be that too. It's possible. She's very annoying. So yeah, I don't know, that's all I have to say about that. Moving on. Who gives a shit? So, John was married. He had 2 kids out of that marriage, which were Ivy Stevens and John Stevens the 4th.
So that's where Ivy and John come into play.
Yes, exactly. So, they were born out of the marriage that John Sr., I guess we can say, had with Susan. So we'll call John's son John Jr. to avoid confusion. I couldn't find a straight answer on either of the children's birth dates. So John Jr. was likely born around March of 1988. I just didn't want to say specifically in case I'm wrong, you know, but that is what I found in most sources.
Yeah, because you never know.
And Ivy was likely born in February of 1990. So yeah, all based on their age at the time of the attacks and whatnot. And John remained a devoted, hardworking dad that adored his 2 kids. And when Michelle came into their lives, she adored them just as much. She was a really good stepmom.
That's good. Seems like a lot of good family going on right off the bat here.
Seriously.
Like a lot of good, hardworking people, successful,
just
good
the
family.
Best people.
Yeah.
Like all American, like the American dream, dude.
Yeah. You going and being in the U.S. Army and all the other, all the above.
Playing sports, like come on, man.
Drafted to the MLB.
Fishing, very American. We're Canadian, by the way.
Yeah, so.
But we love Americans. Our mom is married to one.
Yeah.
Actually, one that was in the Army too.
Yeah.
So we've talked about John. Now we're gonna go to Michelle. So Michelle Karen Mischon is how she was born. She was the first of 5 children born to parents Jeffrey and Patricia Mischon. From what I could find, Patricia was born September 1943. Some sources differ, but she was born right in Miami Beach, so a local her whole life.
Oh, okay.
And then I couldn't find pretty much anything about Jeff Mischon, which is weird because he actually served as the mayor of North Miami Beach in Florida from 1989 to 2005.
That's weird. So you found that he was the mayor.
But there's like nothing about him. There's more on his wife.
Oh, yeah.
And he was mayor from 1989 to 2005.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that's a good run.
Yeah.
That's like what, 16 years?
For when? 1985 to
1989 to 2005. So yeah.
Oh yeah,
16 years.
Yeah.
That's nuts. So I thought there would be like a treasure trove on him and his family because of that, but I guess not. What I did find though was that Jeff and Patricia married in 1962, and then in 1963 they had their first child, Michelle, our person today. Michelle. She was born March 14th, according to her Facebook memorial page, which would make her a Pisces. And that hit close to home because Jordan is born March 15th, one day after her.
Oh.
I mean, different years, but you know.
Jordan. In case you guys don't know who Jordan is, that would be...
He lives at my house.
He's just some guy that just lives here. We don't know really right where he came from.
It's been like 6 years though, so I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, we've just accepted him here, so that's all good. He's a good guy.
He's a good old ginger guy. But anyways, I just like to connect things back to us. So Michelle was, oh my god, that probably hurt everyone's ears, that sound I just made.
Wow. Shh.
But shh. No. So Michelle had 4 younger siblings, 2 sisters and 2 brothers. So it was Cindy, Jody, Greg, and Mason. The family lived in the North Miami Beach area. She went to high school at North Miami Beach Senior High, where she graduated in 1981. Then she attended Florida State University, which Florida State University will come back later on.
Alright, keep a mental note,
yes, guys. Florida State. So, classmates of hers said that she was very popular in school, and she was the kind of girl everyone naturally gravitated towards. She was known for her gorgeous auburn hair and freckled complexion. She was like super cute freckles, like you know how like Dad has like all over his arms. She had that.
Oh, so she was just covered in freckles.
I know, yeah.
So many freckles that it's almost like that's just the color of the skin.
It's so cute. It's such a awesome trait to have. I mean, it's not cute for Dad, but like...
Yeah, I was gonna say I wouldn't say that Dad's cute.
For women, it's a cute trait, or for people that are not her dad. So, her friends often referred to her house as the fun house because the kitchen was always stocked with plenty of snacks. The family was always happy. You know, her family said about her that she was always laughing and smiling. She was just a fun, silly gal. Her sisters even said that when they were young, she would ride the family dog around on the back and just ride the dog.
How cute. I've tried that before, but the problem is I have chihuahuas, so...
Yeah, so it doesn't really work too good. But, you know, cute kid shit that kids do. She was never, ever missing a family birthday party. Her little sister, Cindy, said that they were best friends. So, Cindy and Michelle were only 16 months apart, so very close in age. Mm-hmm. Michelle would spend hours rubbing Cindy's stomach when she was young because she suffered from pain as a child. And, I mean, like, think about that as a sibling. Like, dude, I would not be rubbing your stomach if you felt pain as a child. I'd be like, go watch the TV, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, that's a sibling.
That would be what probably Mom would do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Michelle is all about. Like, she's just naturally caring, like, motherly, somebody who's gonna sacrifice, like, their own fun, you know, even as a small child, to do that.
Even, as a small child when all you want to do is have fun.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to do that. But she did. Like, she's just an amazing person, you know. Even later in life, Cindy, so the sister, would later say when they grew up that she wanted to buy a home. Actually, she did buy a home close to Michelle's so that they could grow old together.
Oh, that's cute.
I know. So, like, their plans were to sit on the patio and just watch the boats go by in the harbor because they wanted to live right on the beach, you know?
Yeah, as would a lot of people. I would want to.
Fuck yeah, that's all I want to do.
Let's go live on the beach right now. That's it.
Let's do it. Bye. Just kidding. So Michelle ended up marrying her childhood friend, Rich Goodman, on March 3rd of 1990. The two of them met in 4th grade. So they remained married for about 2.5 years before they divorced in September of 1992.
Okay.
Rich and Michelle, though, maintained a great friendship over the years, even after they divorced and Michelle married John later. Rich and Michelle were childhood best friends, met in the 4th grade, and they divorced later on, but they still remained best friends, like, all of their lives.
That's good.
And Rich even became friends with John later. Like, it was a good situation. Yeah. Rich would later say, quote, "My only hope now is that they are on a boat, smooth seas, wind in their hair, laughing together." So that's her ex saying that about her and her new husband. Or not new, because they've been married a long time at that point. But I mean, clearly everyone thought the highest of the both of them.
Yeah.
So, like, no, even people that might have something bad to say never did.
No bad blood there in that relationship, at least.
No, just a sweet person. And they never had any enemies, and that's why I said the crime is very senseless. Like, there's no fucking reason for it. But anyways, sometime, now this is when the two of them come together, John and Michelle.
Alright.
So sometime around 1992 or 93, John and Michelle met when they were both working for the same financial firm in Miami. Apparently, she had worked for John at Prudential Securities. When they met, they both had been divorced and in a similar situation. They both were already, like, very established in their families and their communities, their careers. Michelle was known to rally around those who needed help. And the place that she worked, like, her coworkers, her bosses, said that she was instrumental in the success of the financial firm. So
that's something you want your boss to be saying about you.
Yeah, like, my boss would be like, I don't even want to know what my boss would say about me.
Yeah.
Be like, this bitch. So that's pretty good. Like, that shows you she was smart and dedicated in all the areas of her life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what she had done. John had bravely served in the Air Force, become a father of 2, and now found success at the same financial firm that Michelle was working for. So the only thing the two of them were looking for was a life partner.
Oh, a life partner.
Oh. So, naturally they gravitated towards each other because they're wonderful people.
Yeah.
Friends and family all shared the same sentiment about the meeting. These two people were made for each other.
Alrighty.
Yeah. So good. Like, the longer they stayed together, the more they loved each other. It sounds like they just were really soulmates. John Jr. would later say about their meeting, they met there and they just loved each other. Their relationship was so solid and never in question. Michelle loved me and my sister as if we were her own. So, that's what John's son said, John Jr.
Okay.
About his stepmom and father.
Yeah.
So it seemed like it was truly meant to be. Even Michelle's father, Jeff, so the man who was the mayor.
Oh yeah, Jeff.
Yeah.
The one we don't. The one.
The one who is elusive to having information about him.
The man of mystery.
The man of mystery. And you know what? I feel bad for Jeff later on, so we're just poor Jeff. Yeah, really. All these people.
I don't even know what happens, but I feel
Poor
bad
Jeff.
for Jeff already.
There's a couple of Jeffs in this story that are really awesome. Like, if you remember from the beginning, I said one of our survivors is Jeff.
Oh yeah, that's.
It's a different Jeff, but it's a Jeff.
Jeff Goldblum.
It actually was. Yeah.
There are dinosaurs on this trip, aren't there? In the words of Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park.
There are dinosaurs on this trip, so just hold. No, there's actually not. But
there's other surprises.
It's still gonna be fun. Jeff Goldblum might show up. He's not gonna show up.
Might have a Jeff Goldblum appearance.
That would be sick. That's my dream. Michelle's father, Jeff, would later say, John and Michelle were two of the most special people who ever walked this earth. That sounds like a pretty good father-in-law and son-in-law relationship, if you ask me.
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah. John's kids accepted Michelle as a second mom straight away. They were very young, too, at the time. Like I said, they were born in, 88 and 90, and then they started, Michelle started dating John in about 92, 93.
Oh, okay.
So just little. In 1997, just before they got married, Michelle wrote to John in a note, which they found later. So, quote,
okay.
I'm just giddy, thinking about what our new life together will bring. You bring me happiness just by being by my side. All we have to do is love each other from this day forward. End quote. So, when John was roughly 40 and Michelle was 34, the two eloped sometime in 1997. Just eloping is so cute. Always.
Eloping. I don't actually know what that means.
That's when you kind of just run off and get married together, you know?
Oh, I didn't know that that's...
You don't... Yeah, it's
that.
That's what it is. It's like, yeah, if you just are like, I don't want to do the wedding. It's kind of like what Jim and Pam attempted to do in The Office, but then they decided, nah, we're gonna...
I'm all down for the running off part, but I don't have anyone to get married to as of now.
Someday. Let's find her.
I'll just run off.
Just run off into the sun.
Yeah.
By yourself. I'm all I need. But, yeah, they eloped and that's super cute. Their anniversary was close to John's birthday. I couldn't find exactly when, but his birthday was July 2nd, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
So after eloping, they headed off to a beautiful honeymoon in Maine. They chose Maine because they loved fishing and boating and being outdoors. And they loved lobster fishing specifically.
Okay. Lobster's good. You know, that's a good thing to fish for.
Lobster? Yes.
I'd prefer lobster if I over fish if I were to become a pro fisher in either one of those categories.
Yeah, and lobster, you make more money off of that. It's a luxury food. So, sadly, the excitement of and the magic of the wedding would have its effects blunted when Michelle's mother passed away very unexpectedly. So Patricia Mischon, Pat, passed away just days after the wedding.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty terrible.
That's like literally just days after.
At least it wasn't before, but because that would have totally ruined. But either way, that sucks. Just very sad. Like, they're supposed to just be enjoying their life, and these two people definitely deserved it. Yeah.
So, most sources say that the day was July 12th, 1997, and their anniversary was sometime near July 2nd, so, I mean, very close by.
Yeah.
Patricia Mischon was pronounced dead at the age of only 53 years old. What's even worse, it was basically a medical accident.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, this is a part of the story. So, in the 90s, there was a drug called fen-phen.
Fen-phen. Is that like a branch of fentanyl?
No. I wrote a little bit about it here. I didn't get too much into it. But basically, it was a diet drug. It was very popular, and Pat was prescribed this drug. She wasn't taking it.
She wasn't just taking it unannounced?
No, exactly. Unannounced. She had an underlying heart condition, which would have disqualified her from getting the drug combo.
Oh, but they must not have known about it, or something?
They did know about it. It should have, is what I should have said. Like, it should have disqualified her from use. But this was pretty early on when people started using this.
Oh.
So I'm not going to get too much into the chemical makeup because this is not a damn chemistry podcast.
All right.
But what's important...
I was starting to get worried there for a second.
Yeah, no. I failed chemistry.
I didn't even take chemistry because I probably would have failed it.
I had like a moment where I got inspired to take chemistry and then I was like, what? And
then you sat in the class for probably a day and you were like, alrighty.
I sat in it for a while. I stuck with it, but there was a lot of crying involved. So... Basically, fen-phen was prescribed across the United States like crazy starting in 1992. Studies show that the drugs appear to be safe long-term when taken together and may even reduce side effects when combined. So it's two separate drugs. So basically, the study came out saying it would be safe, it would be fine. Doctors started prescribing it and people started taking it, and that is when issues started happening. Concerns were raised linking fen-phen to a possibly fatal lung disease, rare cases of heart valve disorder.
That is
not great.
That's the beauty of technology, because now we know things like this.
Yeah, exactly. It's just unfortunate people had to fucking die before we figured it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Pat Mischon, Remember, she was the wife of Mayor Jeff Mischon at the time that she died. This was during his time in office. Her death would be a tragedy no matter who she was, but her stature in Florida society would mean that people were outraged when they learned about her death. At the hands of the safe and effective Fen. Air quotes. Just months later, in September of 1997, the Florida Board of Medicine would order physicians in Florida to stop prescribing it immediately and wean any existing prescribed patients off the drug within 30 days.
Good to hear.
So, yeah, exactly. At least things were changed really fast, and it would have been sad if it was... I mean, it could have happened to someone else who was less well-known. And
probably, I mean...
Yeah.
You know.
So I am, like, it's tragic, but... I'm glad at the same time that she was able to get things changed.
Yeah.
But anyways, by all accounts, her family was broken up about it. They were a very close family, and Jeff, the dad and husband, was devastated. She was only 53. That's younger than our parents.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
And that's not considered a very... old age to die these days.
Especially for someone who was completely healthy, and this was completely unexpected.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were a very close-knit family, and Michelle was obviously very upset about this, but now she had her new husband, John, to be with her for the grieving process, at least. So life went on, and other than dealing with the death of Michelle's mother, the couple were enjoying married life and each other's company. John Jr. and Ivy were thriving in this new arrangement too. Ivy later described how excited she would get when her father and Michelle would come pick her up for the weekend to go do like family activities. You know, John Jr. loved to go fishing with his dad, and John was known as an amazing dad. So John Jr. even said that he had rushed home from work one day when little Ivy and he were playing. She climbed up too high in a tree, and then she got scared. So, so he rushed home to help his daughter down out of the tree. So yeah, Michelle was just as amazing a mother. She made sure those kids knew that she loved them. She became a best friend and a confidant to them, along with being a mother. At some point, the family adopted a dog named Rebel.
Rebel.
The cutest name. So things were going well for the Stevens family. In 2001, Michelle would start her job at Northwestern Mutual Financial Network.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty cool. She was admired by her coworkers for her generosity, kindness, and willingness to help. Her coworkers respected her greatly and would say so later on. Like I said earlier, she was said to be essential in growing the firm. Michelle was also known to her colleagues to be deeply caring. When a coworker's mom was diagnosed with lung cancer, Michelle helped her to form a team to take part in a fundraiser. To take part in a fundraiser for the American Lung Association's Fight for Air climb in Miami. So it was like a climbing thing.
Oh, okay.
Some kind, I don't know.
Kind of climbing.
Some kind of physically exerting activity, anyways. And Michelle, like, she was fit. Like, if you see pictures of her, fit. The couple bought their beautiful Kokomo Lane home in Jupiter, Florida. John eventually changed up his career path as well, so he was at the financial firm before. And then he decided to start a landscaping company called John on the Green Incorporated.
Cool.
Yeah, and that was in April 2009. He was 51 years old at the time.
Pretty successful lives.
Yeah, for real. The kids had both completed their educations and begun their careers at this point, like Ivy and John here.
Oh, yeah.
So John Jr. had followed in his father's and grandfather's footsteps and became a Marine somewhere in the 2000s. Ivy graduated after studying cosmetology and had started a career as a hairdresser. Really cool. Ivy later would say that she knew how proud her dad and stepmom were of her and her brother. In 2013, John changed things up a bit once again and established Green Smart Lawn and Garden. So, yeah, another landscaping company. He ran that business for a couple of years before he finally was able to retire in 2015 after a lifetime of very hard work.
So we're getting right up to the current day and age here almost.
Exactly. John was so ready to retire and spend all of his time enjoying everything that he had worked for alongside his beloved wife and family. Michelle also retired at this point, and their days were spent fishing in beautiful Florida. Their dog Rebel was always on board, and they were hosting family and friends in their iconic garage mahal. This place was their open living room, essentially. It had 3 couches, a TV, a grill, an ice maker, and it was adorned with tons of beachy and nautical-themed decor to express the couple's interest in lifestyle. The Stevens home was beautiful, and they worked for it, and they deserved it. They were so friendly and social. They made their main hangout in the garage so that neighbors could stop by any time for a bite to eat and a chat. The family ate meals there, John cooking up whatever they had caught that day, and Michelle enjoyed dancing and just vibing. Yeah. So John would have a cigar every so often. Reminds me of our dad.
Yeah.
Whenever he'd had a couple drinks, the cigars come out. He was described as the quintessential tanned Florida dad with a heart of gold. Michelle, John, and Ivy and other friends and family would head to this super cute tiki bar called the Square Grouper many weekends. I actually looked it up, and it's beautiful. It almost reminds me of that beach bar that we went to in Greece, in Athens.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that would be so cool.
Yeah,
I would love to have a bar like that to go to every day.
Because, they live in Florida, so...
Yeah.
They went to the tiki bar, and that's because John, Michelle, and Ivy all lived together at this point, so she was an adult, but she was still living at home.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, they went to the tiki bar. Michelle loved to help the children and really anyone with their problems. She was known to be a great confidant and advice giver. John and Michelle were just, enjoying their retirement. So this is what their lives looked like in March of 2015 when their eldest son, and stepson in Michelle's case, had some exciting news for them. John Jr. had gotten engaged to be married to his fiancée in November of that year. In November of that year, they were going to get married. John and Michelle were even more ecstatic when John Jr. told them in winter of 2015 that they were expecting their first grandchild.
Oh, so everything's just working out.
It's all working out. John Jr. told them in winter of 2015 that they would be expecting their first grandchild in May of the next year.
Okay, maybe around my birthday. Maybe.
Yes, very close to your birthday, actually. So by this time, John Jr. had relocated to Kansas with his wife and her son. So, again, following in his dad's, or I guess more his stepmom's footsteps, because he's now taking on a child and he's being a stepfather, and he's, being a good dad.
Yeah.
So when their beautiful baby girl named Jameson,
that's an interesting name.
Cutest name. When their baby girl Jameson was born in May of 2016, the family immediately got to work on plans to travel and see each other so that John could meet his first grandbaby, and for Michelle, her step-grandbaby.
Oh, but basically grandbaby.
Yeah, exactly. They all considered each other, they called her a second mom, alone. So the happy news was once again overshadowed a little by another death in the family in 2016. On January 15th of 2016, Jack Stevens, so John's father, passed away. Jack Stevens passed away after a long battle with Parkinson's. He was 86 years old at the time and left behind his grieving wife, John's mom, Helene.
Aww.
But in the face of tragedy, John resiliently moved forward with the help of his caring partner. Michelle held his hand through this just as he had for her for all those years, after she lost her mother. So anyway, at this point, Ivy had returned to live with John and Michelle. She had been living there for about 10 years, according to her brother. She was living with her dad and Michelle at the Kokomo Lane home in 2016 and moved out only weeks before all of this happened. So, of course, she was also excited to meet her new baby niece.
Yeah.
John Jr. and his family were planning to bring baby Jameson to Florida later that summer for her christening and to meet her loving grandparents and extended family. John Jr. said that his dad and Michelle were thrilled to meet their little granddaughter. Specifically, John was psyched to share his love of the sea with Jameson and take her out on the boat for the very first time. So on July 2nd of 2016, Michelle made a post to her Facebook account celebrating John's 59th birthday and their 19th anniversary. She wrote to John, "I love you to the deep blue and beyond. Here's to another 19 years of laughter, life, and love." So 6 weeks later, Monday, August 15th, Michelle, John, and Ivy were spending some time together in the family home.
Yeah.
Since the couple had retired, they decided it was time to sell the home that they had bought to raise the family in and buy a smaller home, more focused on their goals and dreams. So they're selling their home. They were hoping to get a place on the water where they could keep their boat, and that sounds just lovely.
Yeah, it's the dream.
Like, you could just go outside and your boat's there.
That is the dream.
Yes. Very One Piece.
One Piece.
So at this point, Ivy had just moved out 2 weeks before, but she was there visiting because she always would frequent the house. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
Ivy had a dog of her own at this point, an American bulldog named Bebe. I don't know if it's pronounced Bebe or like BB, but there's a character in South Park named Bebe, so we're gonna go with that.
It could be just BB, I don't know.
It
could be any combination of different things.
I really hope it's Bebe, because I love that. So, she had left Bebe behind at the home. So she had just stopped by to like hang out, bring some food for Bebe, and visit with her parents. That night, John was inside working on painting the home in preparation to sell.
Right.
And Michelle, she loved to relax by reading her Kindle in the cozy garage sanctuary. Just enjoying life, probably having a drink. Ivy had originally wanted to leave Bebe behind for one more night, but John insisted she should bring Bebe home to start acclimating. I think he could tell that Ivy missed her little dog.
Yeah, not as would anybody.
Exactly. So those small changes impact animals, and I'm only assuming here, but Ivy is compassionate and sweet, and she probably didn't want to put her dog through that.
Yeah.
So anyways, she visited, brought the food, and then they went their separate ways. When it was time to head out for the night, Ivy packed up Bebe and turned to say, "I'll see you in the morning," to Michelle, who was still relaxing in the garage. She debated whether to go inside and say bye to her dad, but she knew she'd be seeing him first thing the next morning for their plans. So she decided not to interrupt her dad's work, and she told her stepmom, Michelle, that she loved her. She left, and a few hours later in the night, John decided to take the family dog Rebel out on a walk around 9 p.m.
Rebel.
Since it was so nice out in the suburban Florida community. Now, trigger warning. Things are about to get real bad here.
Okay.
I'm not going to gloss over it because we need to hear the details to understand like what an asshole this person is. So now the family obviously wants their loved ones to be remembered for the not for the attacks on them, but for everything that we've discussed up until here.
Yeah.
So while we will cover the attacks, keep who these people are on the forefront of your mind, and once we are done with the gory details, we'll take a collective deep breath and release it as much as we can, and refocus on who these two incredible people are. So you've been warned. It gets bad. So while John is on his walk with Rebel, Michelle stays back and continues reading and relaxing in the garage. It's about 9:15 p.m. when 47-year-old across the street neighbor Jeff Fisher is awakened from his sleep to strange noises outside and then screaming. From what I could find, he first peered out of a window where he saw a very clearly unstable man standing in the Stevens driveway, smashing Michelle's car door and making animalistic sounds.
Wow.
Yeah. So, not great. He then saw Michelle come out of the main door in the garage, seemingly responding to the commotion. And as soon as she slips out of that door, this crazed maniac lunges for her. It's important to note, too, that Michelle was only 100 pounds. She was tiny.
She was not a large woman at all.
She was tiny. Maybe she froze in fear. I know I would if I opened my garage door to see this fucker. Or maybe she tried to escape. Maybe she fought back. But again, she was 100 pounds. In this split second, Jeff witnesses the man grab a hold of Michelle and violently throw her to the concrete ground. He rushes out of his house to help her, but by the time he arrives at the garage, Michelle was already lying, seemingly unconscious on the ground, in a growing pool of her own blood. The crazed attacker, covered in blood, then turned to look at Jeff and said to him, "You want no part in this."
Yeah, that is
not what you want to hear.
Terrible.
So Jeff is a hero. To see that sight and still rush towards this guy with no hesitation, that is admirable.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, Jeff is an MVP right now, for real.
Yes. So everything in you would tell you to run away from that scene, not into it, but good men protect women from evil men like this. It's something that's built in your DNA when you're not a complete and total psycho. But I digress. The attacker rushes at Jeff after he tried to stop him from attacking Michelle further. This is all happening in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
This attack is frenzied. The attacker raises his arm and brings it down on Jeff's neck. With the adrenaline coursing through his veins, Jeff paid no attention to this and set his sights on taking down this attacker. The attacker got multiple blows in on Jeff as he fought, and Jeff was able to overpower him for just a second, grab a hold of his shirt, and yank him down. The attacker lost his balance, and down he went face first into the concrete. So, he's gotten pretty fucked up at this point himself, the attacker.
The attacker, okay, good. Good.
Yes.
Good to hear.
At this point, Jeff realized that he was hurt pretty badly too, and he would no longer be able to help Michelle, and he needed immediate assistance himself. So, in the split second that the attacker was disabled, Jeff made a break for it. Michelle was still just lying there, unconscious, presumably, and not saying anything, not moving. Jeff sprinted through the Stevens home, through the sliding glass door, and out into the yard where he hid behind a bush. That is where he realized how badly he was injured. He was already struggling to breathe, and he was bleeding profusely. And he still could hear the attacker screaming, making guttural, animal noises, basically. He was yelling nonsense, and Jeff was hiding. It was now that the adrenaline began to wear off and the pain kicked in, and Jeff realized he was bleeding from the neck. He had been stabbed in the neck, just inches from his jugular. He had also sustained a large cut to the head and was bleeding profusely from that wound. And if you don't know, heads apparently bleed the most. I guess they just have the most blood. I learned that from the Morbid podcast, which is my fave. So, after discovering how bad his condition was in that moment, he ran back to his home to call for help. The police have released audio of this call, which we will get back into in just a moment. But at the same time that Jeff was returning to his home, to his horrified wife, which is 9:20 p.m., and poor John returned from his peaceful walk with Rebel, only to stumble across this. So remember, this whole thing started at 9:15 is when Jeff first heard screaming.
Oh yeah, so that all happened in 5 minutes.
5 minutes, that's all happened. And now he's run back home, police are on the way, and John is returning home to find his wife like this. Can you imagine just leaving for a quiet walk and returning home to this?
Yeah, that would be terrible.
Yeah. Like a madman covered in blood, wielding a knife in your garage, where you know your wife was hanging out not long ago. The thoughts must have been just rushing through his head, I can't comprehend. It's unclear whether he saw Michelle or not, but either way, complete fucking panic must have washed over him.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And poor sweet Michelle, she was simply going to check on a disturbance she heard in her driveway. She never could have known that she would have come into contact with this demon. Just like a regular, normal night, an activity many of us would do, something I have done. She just walks out of her door, and within seconds, she's violently thrown to the ground. No talking to this guy, just instant violence. So Jeff is fucking bleeding out at his home. His wife is desperately tending to his wounds, on the phone with 911. They discover and communicate to the call taker that he's been stabbed in the back as well. John strolls up.
Jeff has been stabbed in the back?
Yeah.
Oh.
3 wounds in the end is what he's got.
So the head, the neck, and the back.
Yes. Jeff is over at his house bleeding out. He's on the phone with the 911.
Okay.
And his wife is there, tending to him. John was coming back to the place that they call their happy place. The attacker had quickly recovered after sustaining the injuries during his face plant into the cement. He seemed unfazed.
Jeff managed to faceplant the attacker into the pavement.
Yes.
But Jeff obviously wasn't prepared as the attacker would have been, so Jeff wouldn't have had any weapons. He just had his hands and the cement.
And he was asleep when he first heard screams, so the man's just woken up out of a dead sleep and is like, what's happening?
Oh man, I would have... Oh.
Right? And Jeff is 47 too, so he's not that young either.
Yeah.
He's an older man. So John strolls back up, oblivious to all of the horror that's just unfolded, enjoying his last few minutes of being happy, you know?
Yeah.
The attacker had quickly recovered. It's unclear, but with Michelle's condition after all of this, it seems that he did go back and mutilate her further after Jeff had left.
No.
So whether or not she was aware of this is unknown. I'm hoping she was not. But this is likely what the attacker was doing when John reappeared. The attacker quickly turned his attack on John, beating him and stabbing him multiple times with superhuman strength. Moments later, an officer would arrive to find the attacker still on John, still choking and beating him. When Deputy Grace Zoff, I really should have looked up how to say that, but I feel like Zoff, I don't know.
Zoff.
When the deputy showed up, she arrived and she observed the scene in front of her. She quickly called for backup and then rushed in. Detective Zoff then made another awful discovery. Not only was this fucking psychopath choking and beating and stabbing a still alive John Stevens, but he was now biting into the flesh on his face.
What the hell?
Yeah.
That is messed up.
Yeah. Literally tearing flesh from John's face with his teeth. He was biting off chunks of flesh and spitting them out.
This guy is completely insane.
Gone. Like,
not,
you can't make this up. And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, that guy's completely messed up.
For real. So the absolute terror that John must have been feeling, like, John clearly was weakened at this point, called out for help from the deputy.
Well, yeah, his face is being eaten.
Yeah, and he's been stabbed, he's been choked, he's been beaten.
Of course he's weakened.
Exactly, and the guy's still on top of him. So he calls out to the deputy for help. He says, quote, "Help me, get him off me, please help." And those were his last words.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's rough. So Deputy Zoff ordered the attacker to get off of him at gunpoint. The attacker just ignored her and continued to take chunks of flesh off poor John's face.
It feels like, when you think about that, you're like, man, how can some teeth bite off cheeks? But
it's
really,
insane.
It's not that...
It's not as hard as you think. Like, it's just your mind has a mental block. Like, I read somewhere that your finger, you could eat it as easily as you could eat a carrot, but you just won't.
Yeah, it feels like it's hard because your mind won't let you, but if you're an absolute lunatic, then it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. What the actual fuck happened in your brain that made you do this?
I mean, it makes me mad more than anything. Like, it's actually infuriating.
I know.
Just think about that happening to somebody. I would be so infuriated.
Just sitting in your garage, like having a nice family night, hosting your neighbors, having drinks. John's painting the house to sell it so that you two can go and live your married, like, retired dreams together.
Yeah.
It's just awful. And as we talked about, John was just a few weeks away from meeting his granddaughter, Jameson.
Yeah.
Like, the plans were in place.
Yeah, I mean, if this was happening right nearby, just like Jeff, I don't think anything would get in my way of at least going and trying to do something to get this lunatic off of John and Michelle.
But the thing is, as we continue, you'll see why this was very difficult. So Deputy Zoff ordered the attacker to get off of John at gunpoint. The attacker just ignored her and continued to take chunks of flesh off his face. So basically he was on some split type of shit. He clearly did not give a shit about anyone's life, including his own, and he ignored a deputy with her gun drawn. Trying to spare his life, she started teasing his ass, but even with all of the injuries that he had also sustained at this point, he again seemed unfazed by the taser.
I'm starting to think this guy was not a human. I mean, well, no human would do this in the first place, realistically, but... So
right.
He is a monster, but I'm starting to think he's literally some, like, supernatural force.
Literally, like, it's insane. And you'll see what made him this way after a while. The detective, or the deputy, tried to handcuff him, but he still overpowered her.
Wait, so I just want to clarify. So, as of now, and maybe we won't, but I don't know, but as of now, we don't know who this psychopath is.
No, we definitely will talk about him in detail. Okay. Now, the deputy tried to pull him off after tasering him, after ordering him off at gunpoint. And now another deputy has arrived, Deputy Wayne Troken. And he saw the attacker doing the same thing, trying to bite John, like, still biting him. And this is going on for, like, minutes now.
That's fucked. He's biting him?
He's literally just biting him until John stopped calling for help. Like, and he still didn't stop, even though John was dead. So Deputy Troken attempted to pull the guy off of John, and he too failed to stop him. He also tasered the suspect, and when this didn't stop him, Troken kicked him in the head, and he was able to daze the guy for just a second.
At what point are you just like, okay, we gotta shoot this guy, like...
Right, and
gun,
that...
like a real gun.
That's what John's son said later. It was like...
Yeah, it's a little weird, but...
Yeah. And this is Florida.
I mean, I wouldn't have even... The taser wouldn't have even been in question. It would have... When I see somebody eating someone's face on the ground, it's straight to the gun.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even... No taser or boot to the head is even a question at that point.
You're done.
Maybe a few boots to the head after he's been shot down to the ground.
Yeah. He's been kicked in the head. Nothing's stopping him. He simply got back up after he was dazed from that kick in the head and continued. Then a canine officer arrived and deployed his dog to stop the attack. The dog did rush the attacker and latched onto his arm, but still he was unfazed. It finally took the dog and the officer to rip him off of John, detain him, and handcuff him. So this man was literally exhibiting superhuman strength. Like, we will learn too that this suspect was a teenager.
Oh.
This is why I say this kid was on some split shit. Not to at all make light of any of this, but my brain just kept going to those final scenes where the guy's like ripping the iron bars apart with his bare hands.
Yeah.
Like powered off of sheer fucking rage. Just horrifying. So finally deputies did get control of the situation, and they discovered that John had sadly passed away from his injuries simply for protecting his beloved wife, that this is what happened to him.
Rest in peace, John.
For real. Like, rest in the most beautiful peace. I hope, like her ex said, I hope that they're in the sea with the wind in their hair and they're just living
I'm sure they are.
I'm sure they are. So Michelle was also pronounced dead from blunt force trauma injuries after being attacked randomly for absolutely no reason. We can only hope that the first injury when the attacker slammed her into the floor rendered her unconscious for the rest of the attack. I really hope at least she did not have to consciously experience this.
Yeah.
Now this is really rough, but it was found that when the attacker slammed Michelle's head into the ground, he did it with such force that he nearly scalped her.
Holy crap.
Yeah. She had been stabbed and she had been beaten so hard that he knocked out her teeth and broke her nose. Her teeth were literally found like on the floor in the garage.
Ugh.
Yeah. 100-pound defenseless woman who did nothing but try and make people feel happy for her whole life. Like, for no reason other than he saw the lights on in her driveway. So yeah, he's a monster, and I'm trying to use his name as little as possible, which is why I'm mostly referring to him as attacker and suspect, but we unfortunately do have to talk about him to understand what the fuck happened here. John had also been brutally attacked, to say the least. His last words were him begging for someone to help him. Again, they were, "Help me, get him off me, please help." Like, his last words were begging for his life. Now, let's go back to the neighbor, Jeff. At this point, he's been taken off to the hospital for his life-threatening injuries, and just moments earlier, which is hard to comprehend, but remember, all of this is happening simultaneously within the matter of like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's from start of the attack to the end. Like, Jeff heard screaming at 9:15 p.m., and 911 was called at 9:20. And that is about the time that the attack on John would have began. So, while John's ordeal is going on, and police are already on the way, the 911 dispatcher, so we're going back to the call now.
Okay.
So the dispatcher is asking Jeff a few questions. The main one, obviously, being what is happening. So after Jeff requests paramedics and police, he starts talking to her about the situation and says, quote, "There's a young man beating up a woman across the street," end quote. He communicated his description of the suspect, and dispatch asked if he saw any weapons. He wasn't sure, probably because he was woozy from blood loss and sheer panic and shock.
Yeah.
But you can hear his wife's voice, like, in the background. She finds him in this state, and she screams, "Oh my God," and presumably runs over to him.
Yeah.
As Jeff is drifting in and out of consciousness, she kind of takes over and says to the operator, he's been stabbed in the neck, in the head, in the back, three puncture wounds. So Jeff's dad then came over to the house to accompany his son to, the hospital. He had a large cut to his head requiring multiple staples. He had multiple stab wounds, one of which caused serious internal bleeding in the stomach, and he also had a broken thumb. But luckily Jeff would survive his injuries.
Oh, that's good.
So all of this information, by the way, is like publicly available information. So that's why I'm feeling comfortable to share it all.
Okay.
But I haven't found too much on Jeff, so I'm assuming he maybe doesn't want to be talked about too much. And this attack left him very traumatized. Like, I read later on, he couldn't go to some of the court hearings because he was just traumatized. Like,
yeah, fair enough. I don't know that I'd want to either.
Exactly. And you never know how you would feel until you've been there and witnessed that.
Yeah.
And almost died from it. So now the attacker would be taken to the hospital. We'll get more into his injuries and his motivations very soon, but first, the police had to inform the family of the awful news. So Ivy was relaxing at home after returning with her dog Baby, just like hours after she had left John and Michelle's home.
Okay, so somewhat recently.
Yeah, just hours later. She's just got home, she's chilling. She got a knock at her door, and she opened it to find a group of police officers standing on her porch, which is never something that you want to see, ever.
That's not usually a good sign.
Never good. They told her to come with them, and they took her back to the Kokomo Lane home to inform her of her parents' death. The home that she had just left hours earlier, with plans to see her dad and Michelle bright and early that next morning on Tuesday.
That's gotta be so crazy. Just imagine leaving mom or dad's house. Yeah, like everything's perfectly fine, they got plans, whatever, and then a few hours later you get the police come to your door. That would be terrible.
I know. And especially because of the detail, and she could have never known, so she should never ever feel bad about this. But that detail that she hesitated, she was like, "Should I go say bye to him?" And then she was like, "No, I don't want to interrupt his painting. Like, I'll see him in the morning. It's fine." That's horrible.
Yeah. And that's actually kind of relatable because our dad paints. Like,
yeah.
I could totally imagine that.
Exactly.
He's just painting. We're like, no, he's really into his art. Like, we'll just see him tomorrow morning.
Yeah, exactly. So, thankfully, the attacker did not hurt the family dog, Rebel. The dog that John was coming home with after his walk.
That's good. You never like to hear the story with the pets getting injured too, because that just...
But Ivy said that Rebel was like a third child to her dad and Michelle. Like, they loved that dog. So she took Rebel home with her that night too. She had only been planning to take Baby home, but now she's taking Rebel.
Oh, 100%.
So obviously the entire family was devastated when Cindy Michon, which was Michelle's younger sister, found out what happened. She cried out in distress, and at the time she was a single mom with a full-time job, and her daughter Perry was just about to enter the 7th grade. So Michelle's sister's daughter, so her niece Perry, was listening from her bedroom and heard her mom scream out after she was told that her sister died. Right?
Yeah.
Perry wrote about this experience later on, hearing her mom cry out about her auntie's death. She later wrote about this because she was applying for law school, actually, because of this case. She was around 11 or 12 when this happened. So it inspired her. So Perry was Michelle's niece and had spent a lot of time in the famous Garage Mahal with Michelle and John and the gang, and she always felt safe there. But in her essay, which would later be read aloud in the courtroom by Perry's mother, Cindy, as a victim impact statement, Perry spoke about the moment her mom found out that her big sister and her best friend had been brutally murdered. Perry wrote about the screams she heard that night coming from her mother's bedroom. She said, quote, "I now know it is the sound of someone losing a loved one, a gut-wrenching sound I will never forget." End quote. This is all the effect of what has just happened.
Yeah.
Perry also wrote about Cindy's endless fight. So Cindy, again, Michelle's sister. Her endless fight for justice for her sister. Cindy had been an attorney, actually, for 30 years. So this just a smart family. So she was an attorney and a single mom, you know, raising kids, working full-time, a hard job. But still, she would find the time to pour through hundreds of hours of evidence, texts, statements, like calls, probably at the sacrifice of her sleep. And she was now using her skills to help get justice for her own sister. And little Perry would be inspired by her mom later on. But for now, we will get more into the aftermath of all of this. But right now, the Mischon and Stevens families are trying to cope with the horror that's unfolded. As we know, Michelle had lost her mother, Pat, in 1997, and John had lost his father, Jack, just 6 months before this murder. Michelle's father, Jeff, was so devastated by this news that he couldn't even speak about it at first. Friends of his said that the sun just set on his family that day. Michelle and her father and siblings had already faced the unexpected death of their wife and mother when she was just 53. Because remember, her mom died at 53. Now, they had to mourn their sister and daughter in a horrible twist of fate when Michelle would also be laid to rest at the same age that her mother was, 53.
Oh, it was 53?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
They were both 53 when they died.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So, John's mother, Helene, had just endured the heartache of losing her beloved husband, Jack, in January of that year, remember, from Parkinson's.
Yeah.
They had been married for something like 60 years at that point, so...
Holy cow.
Yeah. So now she was faced with the loss of her only son, and it would be just Helene and Gina, John's sister, from this time on. So the Mischon and Stevens families were clearly very close-knit based on all accounts. Jeff Mischon loved John like a bonus son. Helene loved Michelle like a bonus daughter. All the siblings-in-law were devastated for both of these losses. Even Michelle's ex gave an impact statement about her and John's love, as I mentioned a while back. The entire community felt this loss. 800 people would show up to Michelle and John's vigil to honor their memory.
800 people?
800 people. That's a lot. I don't even know 800 people.
Yeah, I don't even know 10 people. I do, but that's pretty cool. 800 people, though.
For real. That shows, just how awesome they were. Jeff Fisher, the man who bravely tried to intervene and almost lost his life as a result, was also devastated to hear that Michelle and John did not make it. He was a family friend as well as a neighbor. The couple's daughter, Ivy, said that he would even come over and feed Rebel when the family went on vacation.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Jeff seems like a good guy.
Neighbor things, you know. And he was even there to help one time when her grandparents lived at home and her grandma took a fall.
Oh.
So, yeah, he was just a helpful guy. Ivy also made sure later to say that she was very thankful for Jeff and very thankful that he was still alive. She felt awful for the trauma that he had experienced that night, but she thanked him for trying. So, poor John Jr. was just living his life in Kansas City with his wife, stepson, and 3-month-old baby daughter when he got the news. In just 2 weeks, he was supposed to be traveling to Florida for his daughter Jameson to meet her grandparents, and now she would never get the chance.
Oh.
So the happy plans were canceled immediately and modified to get John Jr. home as soon as possible to be with his family, or what was left of it. What was supposed to be a happy trip became a very bleak one. The family spent some time together mourning, picking up the pieces. John Jr. actually decided to take Rebel home with him to take care of. Ivy struggled to cope for a long time. Eventually, she would move away from Jupiter, because that's where they lived, a little suburb, Jupiter, Florida.
I wouldn't have a very easy time staying there.
Like, how could you go to that tiki bar again after... Like... Yeah.
It would be difficult to move away because you're so attached to there. And
that too, and that's
probably be very sad at first, but at that point you just want to forget a lot of what has happened. So moving away is probably one of the best first steps to take for that.
Exactly, but she couldn't bear to be there anymore. But she did move back really quickly as she missed it, and she knew how much her parents loved the community. Like she knew that they would want her to be there. During the chaos on the night of August 15th, after authorities had brought the perpetrator to the hospital, they were able to identify him, not by his own volition, because he was still losing his shit and needed to be sedated. So, in fact, he even screamed at the police officers to please kill him, that he deserved it, after they had finally pried this attacker off of John. Jeff had described this attacker as about 25 years of age to the 911 operator, but this was actually a 19-year-old Austin Hariff.
Oh, Austin. That's so weird. So he's younger than me.
Literally, younger than both of us. So, what the fuck is his deal? What led him to all of this? No one's really sure because he won't say. His parents won't say. But despite this, a lot has been revealed through the investigation, so let's talk about this kid.
Alrighty, I'm curious.
So, he was younger than you at the time. He is not actually, in fact, younger than you.
Yeah, now he's probably like 25.
Because Austin Kelly Hariff was born December 21st of 1996 in Jupiter, Florida. So same place as John and Michelle. He was a Sagittarius. No shade to Sagittarius. Unfortunately, there are awful people born with all zodiac signs, but it does come into play a little bit later on, which is why I mentioned it.
Okay.
So just to take you back a minute, Austin's dad, Wade Hariff, was born in Oklahoma on June 27th of 1955, and Austin's mom was born, Mina Mizuji, on September 6th of 1965 in Texas. So the two of them would go on to get married in Florida in June of 1994 when Wade was 38 and Mina was 28. I couldn't find much on Mina, but Wade was and still is a dentist. And as I said before, Austin was born in December of 1996 to these two people.
Okay.
So Wade and Mina are his parents, and then there's Austin. The couple did have a second child about a year later who they named Haley. There isn't a whole lot to talk about in this family at first. Austin said he had a good relationship with his mom and sister. His dad, on the other hand, was a little too forceful in Austin's experience. So Wade would often pressure Austin to participate in activities that he hated, like fishing.
Okay.
So, pretty big contrast to, John and his son, John Jr., going fishing together.
Yeah.
Austin was not down. He didn't want to do it. His dad kind of forced him into it, he said. So he described his dad as a nice guy, but who had a temper. So, not much to note here, but when he was around the age of 5 or 6, Austin said he remembered experiencing sleep paralysis a number of times, usually feeling that aliens were coming to abduct him. Those experiences seemed to taper off with age. But sometime around 2010, when Austin started middle school, his parents did end up getting divorced after about 16 years of marriage. So it said that Austin and his sister mostly lived with their mom, Mina, but would see Wade regularly as well.
Okay.
It was also at this time that Austin started to gain some weight and some acne. Unfortunately, he was bullied for this. He said that he became very socially anxious at this time and started experiencing small bouts of depression. Honestly, that's probably most of our middle school experiences. It was mine. It was said that he got good grades at school, and at some point during all of this, each of Austin's parents had moved on and moved in with their new spouses. So when Austin reached high school, Austin was still coming out of his shell, but he was becoming more confident. He joined the football team in freshman year and started obsessing about his body. He began dieting and exercising, but maybe to an extreme. He began making friends after joining the football team, and things were looking up for him. Small bouts of depression were still a problem for him, but he said it usually only came once a week, lasted maybe a few hours to a day.
Okay.
But when he was 17 and a senior in high school, he started dating his very first girlfriend named Kathy. So the two of them dated for about a year before breaking up. I'm not sure why they did break up, but I'm assuming Austin's going off to Tallahassee for university probably had something to do with it. So Tallahassee is over 6 hours from Jupiter, Florida, so it's a drive. Austin decided he wanted to go into the medical field, and it's unclear if he decided this for himself and wanted to follow in his dad's footsteps, or if maybe he was pressured into it. Because it does sound like his dad, like he said himself that his dad did pressure him a lot into things. So he started attending Florida State University, if you remember from earlier. The exact same university that Michelle went to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he started attending that school in the fall of 2015. So this is coming right up because remember our attack is 2016 in August.
Yeah.
So, but as his interests evolved, Austin eventually decided he would like to become a dietitian or exercise science major. So at Florida State University, he joined a frat called Alpha Delta Phi. The beginning of his college career would also be the downfall of his life and the lives of his innocent victims and their families.
It seems like things aren't going too bad right now.
No, things are going fine right now.
I guess we'll see where it turns around probably soon.
Very soon.
Oh yeah, so some of this information was Austin actually revealing this to the detectives and stuff? Was he pretty open about, or
yes.
Is that something we're gonna be finding out, or?
Yeah, so the thing is, he wasn't able to be completely open because, he has lawyers standing around him and they needed to go for that insanity defense.
Yeah.
And so they had to kind of make sure he wasn't saying anything that would jeopardize that. So who knows, really. But a lot of this, actually most of this information comes from a report, which I'll talk about later. That was written up by an actual psychologist. So I read that whole report. I took a lot of the info from that. Things seem to be going pretty well for him. It sounds like he's into interesting things. He wants to be a dietitian or an exercise science major. That's something you would do.
Yeah.
I feel. Except you would not do this next part. At this point in the fall of 2015, Austin began drinking excessively to the point of blacking out multiple times a week. So, not you at all.
No.
That's where you differ.
I'm hoping it's some other aspects as well, but...
Yeah. So, this time is well documented in texts that Austin had sent his friends. Now, there are different accounts on what happened here. According to Austin, later on, he had tried mushrooms, LSD, marijuana, and Adderall. And that's according to him. But according to his texts, which would be read aloud by Michelle's sister during her victim impact statement, his drug use was more intense than this. Things really seemed to amplify in October of 2015. Many of his texts are completely incoherent, but with the same common theme, which was, I'm drunk, I'm high, I blacked out again, I'm on my third blackout this week. Even more concerning, he also wrote about taking meth, heroin, cocaine, Vyvanse, Adderall, Xanax, and codeine during this time.
Okay, so pretty much every single horrible drug that you can even try.
Everything imaginable. So this probably contributed to his constant blacking out. But friends would text him with pictures of himself from the night before, passed out naked or in some compromising position. He never remembered it, but he would just laugh about it in the texts. He also made awful comments about women, so great. Referring to them as sluts, saying they would drink all of the alcohol at parties before he could. So that's what we need to worry about here.
Yeah.
So here are just some of the texts that Cindy Mischon would read aloud later that were sent by Austin. I'm mostly paraphrasing here, but you can go listen to the entirety of this on YouTube. She goes on reading these texts for a long time. I think it was over half an hour of her just reading this. Heck? Yeah. A lot. So in October of 2015, he texted his friend that he went to a trailer park and did meth. On the 12th of October, he texted his friend saying that he was a psychopath. He talks about continuing to do meth on a few occasions. On October 23rd, he said he was on his third blackout. On the 25th, he asked a friend whether he should try Vyvanse, which is similar to Adderall.
Okay.
And he started taking LSD, so perfect. On November 18th, he texted that he had been in rehab, was out now, and wanted more drugs. He also said, and this is particularly disgusting, I'm laughing once again because I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He wanted a, quote, hot girl to snort coke off my dick, end quote.
Okay,
so, seems like just a really great person.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some problems.
There are some issues. Yeah, so by this point, his text started mentioning lots of cocaine use, possibly the use of steroids, or at least interest in taking them. In December, he also started experimenting with heroin. Again, all of this is according to his own texts. So on Christmas Eve, he texted a friend that he was high off codeine, and he had spilled syrup on himself. Yeah. The texts are so repetitive, but just know that he was texting about a wild cocktail of drugs that he was on almost every day now. To summarize, so far he has admitted to using marijuana, alcohol, LSD, shrooms, Adderall, Vyvanse, cocaine, heroin, and meth. So he's off his rocker, blacking out almost every night. Like his brain must have been just hanging on by a thread, trying not to leak out of his ears.
Yeah.
At this point.
That's so many drugs. That's such a wild.
That's too many drugs.
Like, the brain must be going through so many different experiences every single day.
And this kid is like 18 at this point.
Yeah.
Like, just turning 19. So your frontal lobe is not developed, sir.
Yeah, and his frontal lobe will never be developed.
It will never be developed after this. Yeah. That's why you don't do drugs, kids. That's basically, I think I said that later on in here. Like, literally, this story could also be called, And Why Not to Do Drugs.
Yeah, this is, if you just read just this part before, well, not even before the killing, just this part,
Right.
it's like, that's like a lesson on its own.
That's concerning.
Yeah.
But he was out at Florida State University at this point. Remember that, he's in Tallahassee. So he is 6 hours away from his family, so maybe they aren't noticing this stuff at this point.
Yeah, because, I mean, typically, I think the kids aren't, like, texting the parents this stuff.
No.
Or calling the parents when this stuff is going on.
Exactly, yeah. So these daily texts continue into 2016. In January of 2016, his friend texted Austin that he should be known as Blackout because he always blacks out. So his mental state is clearly deteriorating very quickly. He started taking drugs in August of 2015, and by January of 2016, he was on basically every drug imaginable by his own admission. In March of 2016, while Michelle would have been celebrating her 53rd birthday, our girl, Austin was texting his friends saying that there was heaven, hell, prison, and jail, and he is probably headed toward all of them.
I don't know about the heaven part.
I think that is incorrect for you, but hell, prison, and jail, sure.
And,
whatever. Go to all of those. Just be locked up, alright? He's heading toward being locked up forever. So on March 23rd, he texted a friend saying, quote, take drugs, smoke weed, kill people.
Oh.
End quote. Yeah. Days later, he texted his friend, quote, I'm a serial killer, unquote.
At this point, I think the friends need to step in and start to do something.
Oh, yeah.
Because at least they know what's going on. I don't know if the parents do, but...
And just wait, it'll get a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing is, these are his friends. Like, his friends are dealing with their own issues and stuff. There's concerns to be had, and they were concerned for him. Things are gonna get worse. So he continues with this particular delusion into April of 2016, when he says he's seen dead bodies. Remember, this is about 4 months before any murders take place. So Austin is also texting his friend saying he smacks, saying that he, quote, smacks women, eats shrooms, and ODs. So on the 20th of April, he started talking about wanting to be famous. This was also when he started dating his new girlfriend, Katie.
How did he get a girlfriend?
I don't know. I mean, he did have some, like, charm to him. Like, I think he did, to me, from his text, it seems like he was a very sad guy. Yeah. And I can relate to what he was going through in a way, because I've been through using too much substances, like, drinking too often. Yeah. And then the feelings, like, the things he was texting were feelings I had, where he would wake up and he'd be like, fuck, like, what is wrong with me? But then he would text his friends, going to black out again to forget how I feel, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do feel for him in a way, but...
I mean, at this point, I feel I'm definitely, like, not as if I don't know what's gonna happen. I feel bad for him right now, because, like, he's obviously, I don't think he...
There's some problems.
I don't think he means bad, right? I mean, maybe now he does, but...
He's making bad life choices, which a lot of people make bad life choices, and it doesn't lead to murder at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I guess.
So, you know.
There's obviously something else there still, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's hard to say. I mean, you never tell. So he starts dating Katie in April of 2016. He continues with his delinquent behavior for a while, evidently scaring Katie with his wily-ass behavior. Suddenly, in June, he does a complete 180, and now he's concerned with purity. So you can see this idea of quitting alcohol and drugs coming up in his texts more and more leading up to the summer of 2016, which is weird, because the summer of 2016 is when all this shit went down.
Yeah.
And the man's trying to quit, so it's like, it looks like it's getting better for him. So he often pondered whether he needed help or if he was going crazy in his texts.
He did need help.
Yes. The vast majority of the following info and some of the above info comes from the psychiatric report written up by Dr. Philip Resnick. So that's the report I was talking about. His report is 38 pages, and he goes really in depth talking to family and friends. But just know that all of these are accounts of Austin and his family and friends. So this is information coming from them. So it's now that Austin apparently decides to give up hard drugs and alcohol and stick to just smoking weed to help him sleep. So he became obsessed with purity from one extreme to directly to the other one.
It sounds to me like he has an obsessive personality. Like whatever he's going for, he's going all in. Like he gets addicted to whatever that is.
What he's experiencing is like he's manic, basically. But being manic is not necessarily a good thing, because it often means that you're very impulsive. You maybe spend money on things that you shouldn't. You're being reckless, driving too fast, things like that, because you feel on top of the world.
Yeah.
It was in the summer of 2016 that his friends and family really started to notice a change in him, and it's debated as to whether he really stopped doing drugs and alcohol entirely, but he did stop mentioning it in his texts. So it is thought that he may have kept using shrooms and quit like all the other harder drugs. But we will find out later that he did have shrooms and Adderall in his possession days before the murders, which he did get rid of, and this was witnessed by his mother and her boyfriend.
Oh.
But we'll get there. For now, it's June of 2016, so just like a couple months before, and Austin has completed his freshman year, basically fucked up out of his mind for the entirety of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now he's wanting to be sober. He was tired of the constant cycle of drinking, taking drugs, blacking out, feeling ashamed the next day. So he'd drink more to cope. But his intentions seemed to change, and they were good. He decided to go back home for the summer.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well.
Totally.
Well, okay.
It sounds good. It sounds like it's going to be good. You're not wrong. So Austin's dad, Wade, thought it would be a good idea for Austin to get a summer job, and what better place than Wade's own dental practice?
Okay.
I'm not sure if he owned it or if he just worked there, but either way, he got Austin a job as a dental assistant. Austin didn't seem super enthused about this, but I think that his brain was on another level at this point, so...
Yeah, it's...
Yeah. Now, we really get into the bizarre behavior witnessed by the people around him at this time.
This is where I feel like somebody should have stepped in way before this, but this is where I think maybe his dad or somebody should have stepped in and taken action, like...
Right? It wild.
Just seems a little...
And he was being so open, and he wanted help, too. That's the saddest thing to me.
It doesn't... Yeah.
Like, he would have gone for help, but they didn't help him. So anyways, now we really get into the bizarre behavior because, like, he's back home and he's working at the dental practice, and everyone around him, coworkers, family, friends, everyone is seeing this.
Yeah.
So after doing this 180 into purity, in July, Austin did another 180 and decided he wanted to become a rapper, just out of the blue. Never had an interest in it before, and this is part of, like, the manic thing. Like, he's going from thing to thing, and he's getting really obsessed with one thing. So, basically, he had never talked about it before. He began texting his poor girlfriend. She's just, like, trying... Yeah, he's still in
Okay.
I mean, they started dating in April, and this is July, so it's only been a couple months.
Oh, okay.
And she's trying to help him and stuff, and, like, she cares about him, and he does have, like, he was described as a kind person inside, so there's some redeemable quality.
I think the drugs have severely ruined his brain big time. Like, that's a big part of this whole thing.
Like, so, he began texting his girlfriend because he wanted to dye his hair blue and buy gold chains so he would be noticed, apparently, that...
Mariana's Trench?
He has to be a rapper.
Josh, what's that guy's name again? Josh Ramsey.
Josh Ramsey, yeah.
I guess if anybody's watching this from the States, you probably don't know who that is, but...
What? Are they not from the States?
Who?
Mariana's Trench?
No, they're Canadian.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I found out recently that not a lot of people from the States know what Mariana's Trench is, aside from the deepest part of the ocean.
Yeah. Okay, if you haven't listened to Mariana's Trench, like, honestly, it'll bring you back to your, like, 2010, like, emo phase, but it's good shit.
No, they make some really good music. And
it's good shit.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, Austin wants to dye his hair blue. I don't really know. So he began posting videos on YouTube, which are very cringe, which you can still see.
Oh, I'm very interested to actually see those.
So I feel a little bad making fun of him because he was clearly off his rocker, but seriously, you will want to give yourself an ice pick lobotomy after listening to those videos. They do also provide some insight, though, into his state of mind at that time. He's clearly losing touch. Like, he wasn't doing any of this because of anything good. He was manic. So Austin did yet another 180 in late July/early August. Suddenly, he decides that he's the next civil rights leader. He's the next Gandhi or Martin Luther King. He felt like he could mediate. Yeah. So we're getting real.
Sounds like he might be on more of a path of Jimmy Jones type of leader.
Yeah. Like, he felt that he could mediate the conflict around the George Floyd shooting. This was right after that. Yeah. And he was, wanting to mediate the resulting protests and the riots and everything. Apparently, he even started fasting like Gandhi.
He was on the right track of mind a few times here, but he just...
Things went wrong. That's why I said, like, it's hard. Like, I don't want to call him an asshole, but he kind of is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, so this is when he was getting back into religion. He declared himself an atheist at 18, but now he was researching Jesus, Krishna, and Buddhism. He said that he thought he was like Jesus, and the delusions intensified. So, on July 31st of 2016, he made a few very concerning searches on his computer, including, quote, "What does it mean when people sell their soul to the devil? Selling your soul to the devil, and how to sell your soul to the devil," end quote. So he really wanted to sell his soul to the devil, I guess.
That's
pretty good. The same day, he also searched for coping mechanisms to help with anxiety. And then on the weekend of August 4th to 7th, so just before everything happens, Austin traveled to Tampa to spend the weekend with his girlfriend, Katie. By this time, he was already completely unraveling. He was not sleeping more than 2 hours on any given night. That'll fuck you up.
Yeah.
It's manic.
I sleep 8 hours and I'm still tired.
Like, honestly. So, Katie had been concerned for Austin. It seemed like everyone thought of him as a jokester and a harmless guy. Sure, he was weird, but he opened up to Katie and they clearly bonded. She did say she thought the songs he was posting to YouTube were weird. Which, girl, they were more than weird, but good for you for trying to be a supportive girlfriend, I guess. So, poor Katie is just vibing in college and she meets this guy and has a couple meaningful conversations with him. And now suddenly he's a cringy, rapping, purity-obsessed, next coming of Jesus-ass, newest civil rights leader maniac. So
that sums it up.
Yeah. So good for her for trying to help, though. She could have just pieced out. Like, she had no responsibility here.
Yeah.
So anyway, Austin and Katie had visited each other a few times that summer, and she said of previous visits, she observed Austin experiencing sleep paralysis.
Oh.
So during that instance, he told her that a demon whispered something to him, and she did say he seemed genuinely scared. At a subsequent visit, he said he couldn't sleep and appeared to be very shaken after hearing something. But during the last visit in August the 4th to the 7th, Katie noticed a much more concerning difference in her boyfriend. She said that Austin was quieter than usual and he seemed totally disconnected to her. So if you thought that Austin's brain was a horrifying, delusional hellscape worked by drugs before, get ready. Because when he returned to Jupiter, all hell basically broke loose in Austin's mind and behavior. Literally everyone around him, family, friends, coworkers, acquaintances, they all said that this was when he became full-fledged delusional. So he had his sister Haley, if you remember. She said that he had become obsessive about helping people and it had become overbearing, like too much. Like, it sounds like a nice thought, right?
Yeah.
But he was talking about seeing the devil in people and how he had got inside of him. He could no longer stand to be around drugs. He thought they were evil and they were killing him, which he probably wasn't far off there.
Yeah, that's right. That's correct.
Correct. Dude probably had about 6 brain cells left after the last year. Like, he destroyed his frontal lobe. On August 7th, a friend that had known Austin since 3rd grade named Sam, and Sam's going to become part of the story here.
Okay.
So Austin and Sam, besties since 3rd grade. Sam visited Austin and he noticed a marked change in his behavior. Austin would apparently go on really weird, nonsensical rants, speaking much faster than usual. He was basically bouncing all over the place in his mind. Think ADHD, but on steroids.
Okay.
Yeah. So a coworker of Austin's named Leo said that he would commute 3 hours every day together to work in the week of August 8th, and presumably before that too. So they drove in together every day, 3 hours in the car. And he said that after Austin returned from this trip, he got really weird. Austin started behaving very oddly with patients at the dental practice. I suppose with his new delusion that he was the ultimate healer, mediator, civil rights leader, he believed he could help people. Apparently he would ask patients about their problems, getting like way too personal. And he would even cry for the patients when they would oblige him and tell him their troubles. So weird. Like, I don't really know if I want my dental assistant doing that. I'm just trying to get my teeth cleaned.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But it's said that he spent his last days there at the dental practice, like his very last day on the Friday before all this happened. Because remember, this crime happened on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's Friday. And Austin spent the entire day at the dental practice just crying. Like, honestly, me at work though too, but... So on August 8th, Austin searched on his computer how to know if you're going crazy. On Wednesday, August 10th, he searched online for schizophrenia and audio hallucinations when falling asleep. He had also been searching topics like the difference between mania and peacefulness. Austin's mom, Nina, said on Thursday, August 11th, so here we go, we're getting close, it's the 15th when the attack happens.
Oh, okay.
So Austin took the family dog, Hubble, very cute. Hubble. Austin took the family dog Hubble out for a walk, and this was unusual because Austin never really showed an interest in Hubble before. Later, Austin would say this was because he was having delusions where he believed he was half man, half animal, and mainly half dog.
What the hell?
Yeah. But anyway, Austin texted Mina that same day saying, quote, "I know this sounds cheesy, but for the first time in my life, I feel I can make a good impact on the world," end quote. So he's trying. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's even up right till the very end. He's still trying.
Yeah.
He's just a very conflicted man.
So he added, quote, "I quit doing every drug. I realized I feel better when I don't smoke," end quote. Nina would later say in her statement that Austin was being annoying. So later that night, on the Thursday, he asked if his mom could sleep in his room, and she did lay with him until he fell asleep. So, you know,
That's good.
On Friday, August 12th, Haley, so Austin's sister, reported that Austin was anxiously pacing around the house that night. He came into her room and he said he couldn't sleep and he was afraid. He asked if he could sleep in her room and she allowed him to. So he brought his blanket and pillow and slept on the floor. He'd already moved rooms before this to be closer to where the family was, in the home, because apparently he did believe at this point that evil spirits were coming into the home, the devil was going to kill them all. He wanted to protect his sister and he felt safer together. you know.
Yeah.
So he also began bringing the family dog Hubble into his bedroom so they could protect each other while they slept. Also, that night, Austin threw away the remaining drugs he still had. This was after he had a talk with his mom's spouse, Bud. So he talked to Bud, who told him he should throw out all his drugs. And Austin listened. He did. This is what I'm talking about here. Like, Austin was like, yeah. So it was witnessed by his mom and Bud. But he was still struggling to sleep that night. The next morning, Saturday, August 13th, so 2 days before, Austin was talking to Bud about feeling spirits and God and helping people. A little later that day, Austin's father, Wade, and his girlfriend, Carrie, picked up Austin to go for a bike ride at Jupiter Farms, which actually sounds very lovely. I want to go to Jupiter Farms.
Yeah, that sounds like a nice little...
But apparently during this bike ride, he seemed lethargic and he lagged behind. That night, the three of them decided to get some dinner at a restaurant called Calvera's Cantina. Throughout all of their stops that day, Austin was collecting business cards from any stranger that he could. He felt like his delusion was that if he had these business cards, the people that he had them from would be protected because he had superpowers. But the next morning, and this is why you know he's delusional, like the next morning he randomly changed his mind and he ripped up all the business cards thinking that it would actually bring harm to those people. So, yeah. But anyways, on the 13th, on the Saturday, at dinner, Austin seemed very withdrawn, so his dad, Wade, tried to convince him to have a drink.
Yeah. With the history there.
I don't know. So he repeatedly refused because remember he's on his purity kick now.
Yeah.
So Carrie and Wade, remember Carrie's the girlfriend?
Yeah.
His dad. Carrie and Wade got into a bit of a verbal argument at this point, probably because Wade was trying to force him to drink, like Austin, and Austin was like, nah.
Yeah.
So they got in a fight. Austin insisted that his dad give him the keys so that he could drive Carrie home. So I guess he was taking Carrie's side in all this.
Okay.
His dad refused, so Austin just left the restaurant. Wade texted Austin's mom, Mina, around 10 p.m. that Saturday night to let her know. After leaving, Austin's account of things that night is that he began walking home when a streetlight suddenly went out, and apparently this triggered him because he feared the dark was evil. Yeah. So, a lot of delusions. He sprinted to the nearest light he saw, which was at a pizza shop, and there he asked for a ride from a random family, which was a dad and two teenagers that he saw at a gas station nearby. But Austin thought the man that he had approached was a veteran because he was wearing an Air Force hat. The family thought he was weird, but they allowed him to ride in the truck bed, I guess. So they dropped him near his home. He also admitted later that he did this in order to teach his dad a lesson. So the very next morning, Sunday the 14th, the day before now, Austin texted his dad at 7 a.m. to say, quote, I wanted you to learn from your mistake. When you curse and yell at me, it hurts me, end quote. So what did his dad decide to do? Well, of course, he decides to take Austin to a gun show. I said, go almost to anywhere else and you'll be better off.
Yeah.
Like, almost anywhere else. So anyway, Austin, Wade, and Carrie go and pick up Austin's friend Sam that I told you about before.
Okay.
Austin buys a Fitbit at Best Buy. They headed there first, I guess.
Okay, so Austin's trying to track his steps.
Yeah, he's trying to be fit, you know? But he's also manic and he's buying things impulsively. Then they headed to the gun show, you know, as you do, where Austin seemed upbeat and talkative with the vendors. He also started telling his friend that certain items there were evil, like a random helmet he saw. He was like, that is like a sinister item. So he got into a conversation about survival backpacks with one of the vendors, and all of this was very out of character for him. These were not his interests. He also spent money a lot more recklessly than he usually did, buying a few things like stickers, snake jerky, a ring for his but he bought a ring for his girlfriend and a switchblade knife. He's definitely in the right state of mind for that. The thing is, he didn't sneak off or anything. He bought this knife with his dad's credit card, with his dad's full permission.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna even comment on that decision. The victims' families had plenty to say about that, and they put it perfectly, so I'll let you know all about that. But when purchasing this knife, Austin asked the vendor for tips on using it to protect himself. After the gun show, the 4 of them went, so this is Austin, his dad's girlfriend, and Austin's friend. They went to a dinner, but there, Austin and his dad got into a mild argument once again. Austin was talking to them about the Black Lives Matter movement and how he was going to become an advocate, to which he was told that that was unrealistic, which it is, but, you know, like, your son's going through it.
Yeah.
But Austin just replied that you can be anything you want, and apparently Wade, at a loss, pulled Austin's friend Sam aside in the bathroom to ask him what the fuck was up with Austin. And it's interesting that the dad was asking his friends this.
Like, yeah, the dad knows something's up, obviously, because he's asking.
And
I don't know why he didn't step in to try and do anything. Like, if I saw my son or daughter acting in these manners, I would step in and, like, try to get to the bottom of this. Like, it wouldn't just be...
Come on, Wyatt. Like, the only reasonable option is to take him to a gun show and buy him a switchblade.
Yeah,
obviously.
No, I would have actually taken him right straight to the gun shop and had him buy, like, a gun and a machete.
Just buy him a grenade. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, Wade pulls aside Sam and is like, what is happening? Anyways, according to Austin, he was flipping back and forth from feeling invincible and on top of the world like a god to being fearful, timid, and on the defensive. So you can see that. Like, it seems like during the day he's very, like, he's going to the gun show, he's talking to the vendors, he's being friendly. But then at night he's like, Mom, will you sleep in my room? I'm scared.
Yeah.
So he's going through it. Later that evening at around 5 p.m., Wade dropped off Austin at his mother's home where he lived with his mom, her boyfriend and their dog, and his sister. So he showed off his new knife, which he said he had bought for protection to his mom, Mina, and then his sister, Haley, and mom's boyfriend, Bud. He also placed a yellow "Don't Tread on Me" sticker that he had bought on top of his black Kia Soul.
Uh-oh.
I hate that he has the same car as me.
Something crazy about those Kia Soul owners.
But he was afraid of the dark in all forms at this time, and he thought his Kia Soul literally represented his soul. That was like his delusion.
Oh.
So he wanted to add some light to it, and that's why he put the yellow sticker on there.
Okay.
So yeah, just another delusion. There's a lot of delusions happening here. He also refused to wear dark clothing, and he slept with the lights on. Then later this night, so all this stuff is happening, the family headed to a birthday dinner for Austin's grandma, and his grandma said that Austin was, like, very overly affectionate, overly talkative, not, like, more than normal. And his grandma said that he thanked her for making dinner just excessively. That night, Austin would ask his sister Haley if he could sleep in her room again, which she did allow him to. But she said later on that she felt uneasy about this because of the fact that he had bought a knife earlier that day.
Fair enough.
So his sister is feeling uneasy at this point.
Somebody's got to do something. Like, I feel like they're all just protecting themselves.
But they're not actually doing anything to help him or solve the situation.
Exactly. It's not his sister's responsibility either. And I think, honestly, as we listen, you'll figure out, like, she tried more than anybody else here, in my opinion. And she's only the little sister. Like, she's younger than he is. So she did feel uneasy about this, and she felt that he was unstable at this point. Things were about to get a whole lot worse the next morning, so this is the day now. Austin did wake up around 2 or 3 a.m., and he left his sister's room to go to his mom's room, and he asked if he could sleep in there with his mom and Bud. So if you thought things were really wild up to this point, now Austin is really going off the deep end. Now it is August 15th. Well, Michelle and John Stevens were just innocently enjoying their lives, minding their business. Austin was spiraling. So a lot of things are going to happen on this day. So just to recap what is going on in Austin's brain delusion-wise, his main thing is becoming a famous figure for civil rights like Gandhi or Martin Luther King. He believes that he can perceive evil and light in other people. He is still on the purity thing and the rapper thing, but his main focus is on the Gandhi dream. He was mostly feeling on top of the world, feeling invincible, but he was also experiencing audio and visual hallucinations, struggling to sleep, and thinking that dark spirits were coming to murder him and his family. So it's a lot of up and down, back and forth in his mind, and it should be noted that drugs were not detected in his labs, other than a trace of marijuana. So no drugs detected in
So
his
he's
labs.
actually been done the drugs for a bit, but
It seems like
I think they've by now they've messed up his brain too much. There's no going back.
They've warped the chemistry, like, yeah. So, they were not detected in his lab reports, which were from the FBI, so pretty reliable. But to counter this point, Michelle's sister would later say that the FBI lab testing this admitted that they were not equipped to test for certain drugs, and apparently mushrooms were one.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't find anything to confirm or deny this, but in support of her thought that this was a drug-fueled attack, because that's what the family thinks, she read aloud in court his text in the days leading up, where he asked for, and apparently did buy, mushrooms. It would appear that he's allegedly, in my opinion, lied before, if only by omission. He did not report the use of some of the harder drugs when asked. So did he lie to the psychiatrist, or did he lie in his texts? And if he's capable of lying about that, is he capable of lying about other things? So was the supposed purchase of mushrooms before or after he threw out his drugs on August 11th? Could mushrooms alone push him over the edge in his mental state? Also, I found in Resnick's report info he pulled from an affidavit for a search warrant that Wade did believe his son had been abusing narcotics and or mushrooms. So that's his own father saying that. But for now, unless they retest or uncover new evidence, his labs came back basically clean. So with all that being said, on the morning of Monday, August 15th, Austin says that he decided to go to the beach for a nice little morning run before picking up his car from his dad's house. But it wasn't exactly a normal run, because the man was running on all fours.
What the?
He thought he was a half man, half dog.
Back with that again.
Yes. So when he saw other dogs at the beach, he thought he had a special bond with them. He also became obsessed with his horoscope, the Sagittarius, a half man, half horse. So naturally, Austin also thought that he was a half man, half horse. So there's a lot going on up there for him. But he was enjoying himself and going through one of his fearless moods when he finally made his way to his father Wade's home. He was running in and out of traffic, believing he was invincible and nothing could hurt him, and there are actual people who've said, like, yeah, he ran out in front of my fucking car.
What the heck?
Yeah. So Mina woke up, his mom, at 9:15 a.m. and noticed that Austin was nowhere to be seen. At 9:24 a.m., he texted his mom, quote, "No matter what I say to you, I am protecting you, even when you think I am evil," end quote. She replied, quote, "What does that mean?" End quote. To which Austin simply replied, "Fuck off." So, yeah. So that's nice. And I was like, maybe you shouldn't have called him annoying, Mina, but anyways. When Mina discovered Austin was gone, she called Wade to let him know that their son was heading over. Honestly, it's just my opinion, but by the sound of that last message, I'm wondering if this attack was maybe intended for his dad. Because nobody deserves to be attacked except, like, murderers and pedos. But even the victim's sister pointed this out later and called Wade out in the courtroom, asking, "Do you ever wonder if this attack was meant for you?"
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question to ask.
Yeah, that seemed to be where his anger was. So honestly, at this point, I'm concerned for everyone's safety. His sister, his mom, dad, the random people on the street he's interacting with, asking for rides. He was going to snap, and honestly, it could have been prevented if some people around him acted sooner.
Yeah.
So anyway, after sending this super ominous text and walking/running on all fours over to his dad's house, Mina called Wade to let him know. So Wade had been at work at the dental practice. This was a Monday, remember? And only his girlfriend Carrie was at home. So he tells his girlfriend Carrie to keep Austin there until he can get home for lunch and try and, help his kid. Austin's sister Haley is also raising alarm bells this day about the situation. She was telling her dad that she was concerned Austin was acting very strange. Austin said he basically sprinted the whole 3 to 4 miles to his dad's house. So when he arrived, Carrie asked him, trying to stall him so that they could wait for Wade to come home at lunch.
Yeah.
So Carrie asked Austin if he could fix their radio on their boat, which he did. She then asked him for help moving some things, and she handed him a bottle of Xanax, telling him to take one, to which he said no. She probably asked him at the request of Wade, the dad. So when his son refused the Xanax, Wade had just arrived home for lunch, and he decided the best course of action here was to give Austin a bottle of Valium to sedate him. So Austin's still on his purity kick, and he refuses the drugs, throwing the bottle out of his car window onto the grass. He was sitting outside in his car at this point, just chilling, basically. So Wade then took his son's car keys, because he's clearly not in any position to drive, like, look at him.
Yeah.
But Austin got mad about this. Wade tried again to get him to take the Valium, and Austin lost his shit. He became enraged, and he started jumping up and down on his dad's car. So Wade gives the keys back. I mean, come on, you don't want to have any dents on the fucking hood.
No, yeah, so give the keys back, right?
He's someone else's problem. Austin, that's not funny. But Austin seems totally fine to drive, you know, of course. But Wade did follow him, at least, in his car to make sure everything was fine. And Austin drove to a random jeweler. I guess he was going there to get his Fitbit adjusted.
Okay.
So at this time, Wade followed him there, got out of the car, and literally forced Xanax into his son's mouth at this point. So Austin spat it out, and he used the chalky texture of the Xanax to write the words "Don't Trust" on the side of his black Kia Soul. So this is a lot of stuff happening in the, this is like lunchtime at this point in the day.
Yeah.
So Wade thinks to himself, that's probably fine, and he heads back to work.
Oh boy.
You know.
There could have been a lot of preventing.
Yeah. So, Austin then drives over to his friend Sam's house, where he arrives at 11 a.m., completely overdressed for a hot summer day in Florida. Sam noticed that Austin had also written "trust, don't trust" on the inside of the car. Then Austin suddenly drove off before Sam could get in, and Sam called him "What the fuck, come back, let's hang out." So Austin comes back and promptly gets out and starts dancing on the hood of Sam's car now.
What the heck?
So he's fucking losing it. He's dancing on Sam's car. Sam is pissed, but Austin seems to be vibing. He's thinking this is funny. Also at the same time, 11 a.m., Haley was waking up and seeing that Austin was missing. Sam and Austin went to the beach, and then Haley was like, hey, what the hell? I want to come too. So they're like, let's drive back and get Haley. So during all this driving, Austin was driving recklessly and veering into oncoming traffic, which was terrifying for Sam. Sam, Haley, and Austin got in the car and they headed to Chili's for lunch before going to the beach. Haley was becoming very concerned as Austin was talking a lot about his knife, so she asked him if he had thoughts of hurting people. She didn't say what his answer was to that, but this shows where her mind is at. I'll just say, I do think Haley tried her best. She was 17 years old. She didn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's anyone that we're going to blame, Dr. Wade Harif, because remember, he's a dentist, and his title is doctor. Yeah. Dr. Wade Harif. I know that he's a dentist, but, he must have learned a thing or two in medical school. And even if he didn't. Sir, your son is very obviously unhinged. Even his little sister is acting more concerned than you are.
Yeah.
But, that's fine. Allegedly. Don't say this. I don't have any money, Wade. So, anyways. Austin continued his bizarre behavior over lunch. He didn't order any food, only water, which he was guzzling. Later he would say he thought the water was literally making him younger and that it had come from the fountain of youth. And girl, I work at a restaurant and that water comes out of a regular old tap. Definitely not the fountain of youth.
You don't know this restaurant he went to.
Could have been a real bad one. It's Chili's, I don't know.
Oh yeah, okay.
So he was also wearing his sunglasses inside, and his sister asked why. Austin said it would protect him from people. And then 3 or 4 times during lunch, he inexplicably got up, left, ran a lap around the Chili's, and then returned to his seat. Just, Then he decided to pay for the entire meal, even though he hadn't eaten anything, and it just wasn't a normal thing for him to do. Both Sam and Haley were asking him what was wrong at this point, and Austin said he would tell them once they got back in the car. So once in the car, Austin told them that he was half man and half horse, and that his mom's house had evil spirits which were trying to get him. Austin said that he'd been staying up at night to protect himself, and in response to this, Sam, just a concerned friend, suggested that Austin might be experiencing mental illness. Austin responded by threatening to beat the shit out of him. So, Austin then took off in the car with, the two of them in there at about 3 p.m., leaving the Chili's, driving with Haley and Sam. He immediately ran a red light and began telling them he was immortal and he needed to, quote, test out his powers. With his sister and friend in the car,
Yeah.
So his sister Haley said he was swerving as if he were drunk, but he hadn't consumed no alcohol. And when he ran the red light, she texted their mom, Mina, telling her that Austin needed to see a psychologist right away. Many more opportunities are presenting themselves.
Yeah.
The three of them returned to the beach where they ran into a few of Austin's frat brothers. They immediately recognized that something was off and asked Haley and Sam about him. And Austin said that he was feeling very withdrawn at this point, so he ignored his frat brothers. So they left the beach, and the three of them, they decided to go to another frat brother's house where there was a little party going on. Haley insisted on driving since Austin was putting them all in danger with his driving. So Austin was cool with this, but he wanted to ride in the trunk because he was a dog.
Oh, so he liked being in the trunk earlier.
Yeah, exactly. He wanted to ride in the trunk because he felt he was a dog.
That's so weird.
Yeah, so Haley asked if he would go see a therapist together with her, and he agreed. So I'm not sure if they let him ride in the trunk, but honestly, I think they were both pretty afraid of him at that point. So Haley and Austin and Sam have made it to the frat house. On the way, though, they stopped at a 7-Eleven where Austin placed his phone on the top of his car and then forgot about it up there. And then he was astonished when a man told him where his phone was because he could see it. And then Austin told the man, who happened to be a black man, that he had special abilities to communicate telepathically with black people.
Oh.
So, not sure what the man's response was, but I'd probably just back away slowly into the bushes like Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
Just, okay. So anyway, his frat brother's name was Dave, so they went to Dave's frat house, and Austin walked around the house and hung out by the bushes, saying that he was one with the animals.
I'm starting to think he is at this point.
Maybe. So many of the people there were drinking and smoking weed, but Austin did not. In fact, he poured a beer out when it was offered to him. But he decided to pour it out onto his hand, thinking that he was, quote, feeding his hand.
Yeah, because his hand needs to be fed.
Yes, of course. Not sure what that means, but moving on. Not sure exactly what point these two things happened, but I believe either at the 7-Eleven or after leaving Dave's house. So Austin kept tossing his knife up in the air and catching it before he finally cut himself, and he stopped because I told him to stop.
Yeah.
He also told his sister that he was invincible and said, just watch, before he walked into oncoming traffic right in front of her. So Haley jumped out and grabbed him by his shirt and fucking yanked him out of the way of an oncoming truck and screamed at him, what the hell are you doing? So this is getting later in the day. It's like the evening now. Austin's dad, Wade, has now gotten home from work, and Haley calls him and is like, we're bringing Austin over, and you need to do something here.
Yeah.
Because he's completely out of touch and acting dangerously toward everyone. Like, at this point in the story, I'd be concerned that Austin was going to hurt himself, if that's my son. Or, like, his sister and friend, like, unintentionally get in an accident, something.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm still surprised that he hasn't, I feel like he hasn't shown any signs.
Exactly, it's insane.
Of, like, wanting to hurt somebody else.
I don't think he
intentionally
really did want to, honestly.
No, I probably just snapped.
We'll get to his reasoning very, very soon. So, yeah, Wade's back home now, and Wade tried again to give Austin Valium, because that's working out really well. And Austin got angry and said, quote, drugs kill me. So I don't know what's wrong with this, what is with this man and his Valium, but dude, your kid needs a lot more than Valium. It's time to visit a psychiatric hospital at this point, honestly much earlier in the day if you ask me.
Much earlier in the month.
Yeah. But I don't know, different parenting styles I guess. So Wade decides to take him to get the help he needed, and story over. Just kidding. I wish that's what happened.
GG, that's it.
Yeah, bye. But instead, he decided they'd take a nature walk to calm down. I mean, at least he didn't take him to another gun show.
That's a progress.
Yeah. So on this nature walk, Austin suddenly pulled out his switchblade knife and told Sam, Haley, and Wade to get behind him. Apparently he sensed an evil presence and he needed to protect them. I'm not sure why no one took the knife off of him at this point. I mean, he seemed armed and dangerous, but also receptive to help. Like, he agreed to see a psychologist with his sister. And honestly, Wade, you bought your clearly mentally unwell son that knife. If anyone should take the risk of trying to get it off of him, it's you. Not the innocent people he would attack a few hours from now. Or call the police if you're concerned that he could be that dangerous. Don't just release him off to the public to deal with.
Yeah.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. Austin agreed to put away the knife when his dad asked him to. That's what I'm saying. Like, if he would have said, give me the knife, Austin would have been like, okay.
Yeah.
So.
It seems like he seems so far gone at this point.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Somebody would have just, like, forced him to go to the mental hospital and be like, you're not allowed to do what you're doing anymore for now.
They literally talked about that. Like, his dad literally said, like, about an hour or so before, he's like, this kid needs to be Baker acted, which Baker acted is, it's an act in Florida where you can have someone hospitalized involuntarily for their mental health.
Oh.
So, like, his dad clearly knew there was some fucking problems occurring. But Austin agreed to put away the knife, so I bet he would have given it over. But honestly, I don't think that would have prevented things alone if we remember what happened with the attack. Like, Austin at this point, he could have targeted anyone. He could have targeted his sister, like Wade's girlfriend. It could have been anybody. So after Austin put the knife away, he hugged and kissed Wade, and then he suddenly sprinted way ahead, about 300 yards. He just gave his dad a big old kiss and hug, and then just ran away really fast.
300 yards, that's pretty far.
Yeah, like he rapidly sprinted.
It's like the length of like 3 football fields.
He's got his suit. Holy shit. I don't know how long that was, but I'm like, I don't know. So at this point, his sister, his friend, and his dad, they all headed back to the road, like away from, because they were going for a walk in the little nature trail. And they called Wade's girlfriend, Carrie, to come and pick him up. And then they were going to go find Austin, because he ran ahead. So they did find him on the side of the road. So where do they head next? To the psych ward?
There we go. Oh, shit.
The 5 of them head to a restaurant.
I was waiting for you to say that. No. They're heading to the psych ward.
No. Never. So
that seems like a tradition at this point, to just head to the restaurant when psychopathic
They love a restaurant.
Yeah.
So they went to Duffy's restaurant. Carrie said, so Wade's girlfriend, said that Austin also tried to ride in the trunk of her vehicle when she picked them up, but he couldn't fit in there, so...
So that's the trick. Just get a smaller vehicle and then
you can't get
you're good.
Carrie was saying, like the girlfriend of his dad, was saying that the entire weekend leading up to this Monday, his mind seemed somewhere else, is what she said. Like, it was obvious to anyone, like even random strangers. So it's hard to understand why his dad thought that a restaurant would be the best place for him, but I don't know. So of course the weird behavior only continued as they arrived at the restaurant, and Austin ordered an iced tea and a bowl of chili. Suddenly he became irritated with how long the food was taking, or at least that's what he said. Later he would say that he felt trapped and claustrophobic in the restaurant, which is why he left. Wade, Carrie, Sam, and Haley were sat there in the restaurant, unsure of where he was going, when his mom, Mina, called Haley or Wade, one of them, saying that Austin showed up at her house. So he just left and sprinted to his mom's house. This was at about 7:20 p.m. and remember the attack happens at 9:15.
Yeah.
So he showed up at her house, sweaty and shirtless, and while at her house, Mina and her boyfriend Bud witnessed Austin starting to drink from a bottle of cooking oil.
What?
Yeah, so Mina took it away from him and told him that she was driving him back to the restaurant.
What? No,
I'm not kidding.
Get back to the restaurant.
Sit down and finish your food.
You're not going to the psych ward. Get back to the restaurant. Finish your fucking food.
What? So I don't know. Mina took away the bottle of cooking oil and told him, you gotta go back to the restaurant, my dude. So Austin wanted a little appetizer, before he went back. So he poured some of that cooking oil into a bowl with mozzarella cheese and then started eating it, as you do. He also put on a blue shirt before leaving, and he actually said he did that because blue made him feel calm and, like, safe. So on their way back, Mina asked Austin if he'd be willing to see a counselor, so they're asking again. And Austin agreed once again.
At this point, it's not a question. I think probably a few hours ago he should have already been at the.
I'd say so.
More than this, he should have been at the psych ward.
That's my opinion as well. But, anyways, so he agreed to it, but Mina was like, "Yeah, we'll just drop you back to the restaurant for now. I'm sure it'll be fine." So Austin returned, and Haley said that Wade was very angry with Austin for leaving dinner. But Austin was laughing and smiling, seemingly like not understanding what he did was annoying.
Yeah.
So this must have pissed Wade off even more because he then grabbed Austin by his shirt in front of everyone in the restaurant and yelled, "What the hell do you think you're doing leaving everyone at dinner?" So everyone who was there said that Austin cocked his fist back as if he was going to hit his dad in response, but his dad's girlfriend asked him not to, and so he just didn't.
Okay.
This was the breaking point that night.
Oh.
This was our moment. At about 9 p.m., Austin left Duffy's for the final time. I guess Wade realized that he fucked up, but instead of going after his son, he sent Austin's teenage friend Sam.
Oh, Sam.
So Sam followed Austin, trying to get him to come back, but Austin refused and continued walking, saying he was heading back to his dad's house. Apparently Austin doesn't remember a lot of what happened after this, but he remembers bits and pieces, which you could say is convenient that he doesn't remember. Very convenient. But on the other hand, if he was experiencing a psychotic break from reality, gaps in your memory are common.
Yeah.
That's hard to say. But the official report does say that he was insane.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly when this was said, but Haley did report that her dad said Austin needed to be Baker acted, which we just talked about. What is the Baker Act? In case you haven't heard of it, it's an act in Florida and other states with variations that allows loved ones of a person who has, quote, exhibited some extreme behavior that insinuates a mental illness and without care or treatment may result in harm to themselves or to others, end quote. To have that person involuntarily committed for emergency psychiatric help. So I found this information from Thomson Reuters' legal website. Basically, Wade was saying Austin needed to be committed with a matter of urgency. So my question is, why didn't you go ahead and do that?
Yeah, I don't know.
So I'm not 100% sure, but I think that a Baker Act would go on your record in Florida. Family and friends of the victims would later imply that maybe Wade was more worried about preserving the Harif name. That's their last name. Preventing people from finding out that this important dentist has a son who thinks he's a half man, half animal.
Well, allowing your son to go and eat somebody is probably not preserving the Harif name.
Probably worse, I would say. So this is where we're going to leave off for part 2. We're going to get more into the court progression, the family's reactions to Austin and all of that. So definitely stay tuned for part 2. Thanks for listening. Bye now.